They found that my brain was shrinking at a 40 times rate faster than it should in somebody my age. My wife, as a way to protect me, she had told me that my phone got crushed. Trying to get back to the basics of, learn how to eat again, how to go to the bathroom, how to walk, all of that. This candle vigil that happened, 250, 300 people up in front of the hospital. I mean, it was just unbelievable. So I started crying. And so you can imagine as a chef having the best reputation in the US and not being able to taste anymore. She goes, "Oh, you're going into work and you're gonna cook?" I was like, "Yeah, Daddy's a chef, I work." She's like, "You're not a real chef, Daddy. You're just a pretend chef." I was covered in lobster guts from head to toe. Buying organic and buying quality and buying from reputable sources that are going to be what they say they're going to be, you're avoiding the sickness that's coming down the pipeline. We can all start with the same raw ingredients and say, "Hey, you've got 1, 2, 3 hours to prepare me, 2 courses, 3 courses, whatever it might be." And I guarantee you they're gonna come out 100% different.
Today, I have the profound honor of sitting with a man whose story embodies the very essence of what it means to rise, serve, and inspire. Brian Roland is not just a celebrated chef who has built a culinary empire here in Southwest Florida. He's a living testament to the power of the human spirit. As many of you know, 3.5 years ago, December 4th, 2021, Brian faced a moment that would have broken many of us. A devastating accident that almost claimed his life. But what emerged from that darkness wasn't just survival, it was a deeper commitment to creating beauty, nourishing community, and lifting others up through the universal language of food and hospitality. Brian's journey from that hospital bed back to collaborating with fellow chefs to raise money for mental health shows us that our greatest challenges can become our greatest gifts to the world. He's taken his pain and transformed it into purpose, his recovery into resilience, and his gratitude into grace. I think you're going to love this conversation because he's so real, he's so authentic, he's such a great human that I had the honor and the privilege to sit with him today. So beforehand, I just want to know, everybody to know, because I want to know too. Tell me what you did last night, because I know you had it all close to an all-nighter. You've been busy the last couple days.
Yeah. So last night was one of our pop-up dinners, and we do normally during the summer we do this pop-up dinner series where we invite other chefs in, we collaborate with them, and we create typically a 4, 5, 6 course dinner, and we invite people from all over to come and enjoy it. And often we do it in a unique space. We used to have our own event venue, and now we search for venues that are, a beautiful backdrop, a great place for people to visit. So last night was at Artist Naples. So they have the art element, they've got the music, and so we were able to take over a private area that we had 40 wonderful guests that came and joined us. So it's a lot of fun.
And what's that like? So do they have kitchen facility there for you to prep in and work in? Or
yeah, so a few years back, they did a large renovation and they put on the Baker Museum side, which has a nice little catering kitchen, you can call it. So, it's got an oven, some hot boxes, some refrigeration, a beautiful stainless steel top with some heat lamps that you can pull down over the food. So
cool.
It really worked out great for this type of an event.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being here today after going through what had to be a lot of adrenaline, a lot of work, a lot of hype, it was a big deal last night for us, so thanks.
No, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, and it was fun because, like I said, we get to collaborate with other chefs. So we flew in Charles Maraday, who's a chef here many years ago.
Yeah,
he had,
big name here.
A couple restaurants, 3 restaurants, and great dear friend of mine, my wife, and so we flew him in from Indianapolis, and he created this menu with us, and he was thrilled just to get back to the area because it's been quite some time. And I think a lot of the guests that knew him, they had dined in his restaurants, and it was a lot of fun for them to be able to eat his food again because it's been so long. So at the end of it, he just said, "Man, this was such a not only a heartwarming opportunity for him, but it was great because he could feel the energy from Naples again." And I think he wants to come back to this area. Actually, I know he wants to come back to this area. So we'll see what comes of it.
Cool.
But it's that type of a dinner for us is the best because having our own ability and platform to be creative for our own team, for Team Crave. That's really what drives us every day, and to be able to do that with someone from another kitchen, right, from another style of cooking, and it's just great because we get to bounce ideas off of each other, and we help each other elevate our cuisine, and so it's so much fun, and then end of the night. We get to interact with the guests. We get to really see what their opinions were of the meal, and so that's a lot of fun. And it was pouring rain at the end of the night while we were loading the trucks up until about 12:30 a.m. So
Awesome.
that's always a lot of
Way
fun.
to top it off. Yeah. That is so cool though, because it allows for because in ordinary flow of a business, you're not collaborating with somebody who's in your role at another business or somewhere else. So to be able to put those creative energy and juices together and work together like that sounds really unique and special. I think that's so cool.
No, it definitely is. And there's a lot of local chefs who I've known for many years, or I've worked with over the years, and they all have their own styles. I think that's what's so unique about cooking and about being a chef, is that we can all start with the same raw ingredients. Literally, you can give us each a basket that has the same exact thing in it and say, hey, you've got 1, 2, 3 hours to prepare me, 2 courses, 3 courses, whatever it might be. And I guarantee you they're going to come out 100% different, right? Or 90% different.
Yeah.
And so it just goes to show that everyone's approach to food, everyone's approach to ingredients, to flavor profiles, to presentations, we all pick little bits and pieces of our journey and we put them into what we prepare and what we create. And to take raw ingredients and make something that can put a smile on people's faces, that's really, to me, what it's all about. But I know for me, I've always tried to surround myself with people that are better than me. It's the only way I'm going to continue to drive to be better. And it's a great way to continue to learn. I started very early as a chef out of culinary school at age 19. And, you have a lot to learn at that age. And you have expectations, from those that are around you to be able to hold your weight. And so I knew that when I became a manager that young, it's a little harder for you to learn from the people above you, right? Because typically that's what you do when you're growing up in the industry. You learn from your mentors. You learn from in my case, your sous chef and your executive chef. Well, I started quickly as a sous chef and grew very quickly into executive chef. So the collaborative approach to cooking has always been the best way for me to continue to, outside of researching, and reading and all that, to be able to learn. And there's a lot of trial and error that goes into it. And that's what's fun for us.
Yeah, that's what I love about food, is that it's not a science. It's a ever evolving. There's so much creativity involved in it, which is so cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to tell you that when I saw you in here last week, and I saw you smiling and getting your hair cut, because he looks good, doesn't he? He looks really, really good. And he got his hair cut. Pascal was cutting your hair.
They did great.
And when I saw you in here, I honestly got a little choked up. I was just so happy to see you and see you look so good and to see that smile on your face. And there was a guest who I was talking to across the room behind you. And she said, "Is that Brian?" And I said, "Yeah, doesn't he look amazing? Doesn't he look great?" I was so happy. It just filled me. It made my whole year, man. It was so cool to see you. And I just really appreciate you doing the work and everything you did to be here and to be you, even more of you. So thank you. And I'm honored, super, super honored to have you here.
I greatly appreciate you saying that. And, I think that's been, for me, since the accident happened, 2021, December 4th, 2021, changed my world forever, my family's life forever. Just had a baby. She was 3 weeks old when this happened.
Remington?
Remington, yep. We call her Remy.
Remy.
And my wife, not even really postpartum. I mean, it was so soon after the accident. Got our 3 businesses we're trying to operate. Now she's got a husband that's in the hospital for 2 months. I was there. Didn't know if I was going to make it for a little while.
Yeah.
And so it changed our world. And it required a ton of rehabilitation and just trying to get back to the basics of, learn how to eat again, how to go to the bathroom, how to walk, all of that. And so it was a lot. It put a lot on us emotionally, me physically, and obviously my relationship with my daughter. It was so new, and it was everything we had worked so hard to finally have a child. I don't know if you know our journey, but we had 3 miscarriages, 3 failed IUIs, and we eventually had IVF, and it worked the first try. And so now we have our beautiful rainbow
Oh, that's
baby
awesome.
Remington. Yeah,
How beautiful. What a great story.
it's awesome. And so that was between Nicole and Remy. They were my driving factor to get out of that hospital and get back home so I could be with them. So, the reaction that you just shared, as you can imagine, it's been almost 4 years. December this year will be 4 years. And that type of reaction is a daily, because I'm reconnecting with people again now that I'm feeling a little bit more like myself, and I've built up the strength to be able to do more again. It took a lot of time, but that reaction, I don't think I'll ever get tired of it. Because I've always been a people person. I've always really enjoyed connecting with people, building relationships, and the collaborative part that we just talked about as well. But in and outside of the business, I've just always loved to be there with people. And part of what we do is creating experiences that hopefully will leave, a memory in our guests for hopefully their lifetime. And so, that reaction reminds me of how important it is that I'm here. And that I'm able to be something for my family, but also something for the community and for those that I like to, to be able to touch. So, thank you for sharing that. And,
absolutely.
all I can say is it's great to be able to be seen, because there was a point in time where I wasn't sure if that was going to be the case.
I can't even imagine, just because being who you are and the way that you are and the way that you're made, to think for any moment that you're not going to be able to be that, like going through that, like the thought of I may never be what I live for in my life.
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there, because I think for a little while, you're right, it was tough because I've always been that glass half full, very optimistic. I'm always a very positive person. That's how I motivate my team. That's how I try to keep myself every day. I get up and, I don't drink coffee in the morning. A lot of people, especially in our industry, because they've had a lot of alcohol and whatever the night before too, right? I mean, it's important that they get up and they drink a couple shots of espresso and maybe a couple of Red Bulls just to get in the door. But for me, I'm on a natural high, and I appreciate and I love and I value life so much in so many ways that waking up in the morning is a privilege, and now more so than ever. But getting a chance to to recognize that there was a point in time that I didn't know if I was going to ever be able to cook again. And because I've been such a positive person, I've never for myself really experienced depression of any kind. If there was something that didn't go right in life, it was considered a challenge to me. And then I would just, what would I have to do to achieve my next goal or to overcome the challenge? And so that's how I've always really approached everything. But this was different. I've never been so physically debilitated in my life. I've never had these types of challenges before. And emotionally, it took a turn for me. It was something that I was struggling. I can honestly say now that I was going through depression. And, when you have that, when you've kind of reached rock bottom, I guess, as they say.
Yeah.
And although I still said to myself, I'm going to get through this, I didn't know what it was going to take. And I didn't know it was going to take 3.5 years to be able to sit here today and, and be able to talk about our story, I guess. It's an amazing journey, and I owe so much of it to God and my spiritual connection now more than ever. Actually, tonight I start Bible study. This is something that
awesome.
I've really started to take a different approach to my life and raising Remy now, and with Nicole. The church that we go to is fantastic, and just the energy that we feel, surrounding us when we know that God's looking down on us. He truly gave me a second chance at life, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make the best of it now.
Yeah, well, the rally in the community, I know it took pain, a tremendous amount of pain, and prayer and love in this community. I mean, there was such a fierce team behind you, man, in this community. It was just like praying and whatever anybody could do. There was just a lot of love and prayers for you, brother. Really.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah. I can't agree more. Being in the hospital for 2 months, my wife, as a way to protect me, she had told me that my phone got crushed and in the fall, and when the elevator lift came down on me, And really what happened was she and my family were protecting me from the media, from, anything that at that fragile state that I was in the hospital, that could protect me from emotionally and mentally breaking down.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
I really, I remember waking up a week after they had me in an induced coma just because of some physical stuff that they had to start to let heal. And I had a brain bleed. So, but not to get into all those details, but she was protecting me. And so she finally, it was like after a month, I said, well, I'd love to be able to connect with people that I have in my cell phone that I can just say thank you, for all the prayers, and thank you for just for everything they've done to help my family, through all this. And so finally, they all said, okay, it's all right. But she said, just do me a favor, don't Google your name. And I'm like, oh, okay. She said, try to stay off social media if you can. And so I said, all right. She said, I'm telling you, there's a lot of stuff that's out there. A lot of it's very good, but it's hard to read. So after some time, remember I woke up in the morning and I was eating breakfast, and if you want to consider hospital food breakfast, and
Especially for you,
yeah,
right?
that was the toughest part. Nicole brought me some meals a few times. I will tell you that. But yeah, just I woke up and I said, okay, today's the day. I'm gonna see what I can, what I find when I Google my name. And part of what you just mentioned, the outpour of love and support from the community, this candle vigil that happened, 250, 300 people up in front of the hospital. I mean, it was just unbelievable. So I started crying, and then I'm reading all the stories and watching all the news stories, and it was a lot. It was a lot. It instantly made me feel so much more grateful. And it really, truly helped me realize how strong this community is. And Nicole and I have always loved to be able to give back to the community and in any way we can. And we really, truly try our best to help nonprofits raise more money and help them meet their mission, and, and work hard to spread what we can do to help others. And this was, instantly it made me realize that it is a two-way street, and that they care as much about us as we do about them. And, and that it means a lot. It really means a lot. And every day that sits right here on my heart, and it motivates me to want to even do more.
Yeah.
So thanks for saying that.
Yeah, of course. You were talking about your wife, and for her to have just given birth not long before this, but then to have to turn into whatever she had to be for you and for your daughter.
A rock star. She honestly, I call her my rock, and she's always really been, but I learned her strength through this more than anything. For her to balance it all and still be the best version of herself for everybody, even still today, because now that I'm re-entering the world now a little bit more, it still leaves her with Remy all day long, and just ensuring that everything is where it needs to be, and being the support for me, and and everything that I've gone through, my process, my thought process, the way that my brain kind of works now is a little bit different. I've got a little bit of memory loss, short and long term. I've got some future health stuff I'm going to be dealing with, but the creative stuff, it always used to just come to me very quickly, and now it comes to me still, but it takes a little bit more time. And I've always loved to bounce ideas off of her. And she, believe it or not, I will say this on record, Nicole has a better palate and a better nose than I do. She always has. And that's probably one of the things that attracted me to her the most was early on. She would taste something. She'd be telling me these flavor profiles, and I'm like, wow, that's actually right there. I do taste it. And she'll smell something. She's always been big on scents and, candles and things like that. But we'll walk into a room, and she comes from the hotel world. So she, a lot of the hotels, they focus
Infuse.
on, yes. And it goes right through the air conditioning vents, and it's their signature scent, their signature smell. So we'll stay at places specifically for the scent, which is pretty cool, right? And so, we take that idea too, and we say, well, how can we bring aroma into our culinary journey with our guests? It's not just the sight, the sound, the smell, the taste, all of that encompasses a full sensual, journey.
Sure. Yeah.
So she's been so great with me over the years and just helping me with elaborating on what I'm thinking or I'm sensing or I'm tasting, and
Yeah.
it's been wonderful to have a partner, that can do that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, her strength through all of this, and I think for the future, she's my rock.
Yeah.
And she's certainly the strongest woman I know.
Yeah, she's a remarkable woman. And you got 3 businesses going at the same time. It's post-COVID, not long after that. And she's got you. She's got a new baby. So she's.
That's a lot.
But she has a day of pampering lined up for her here, by the way. So we'll have to make sure we get her set up for that. She deserves some good love, and she's
awesome.
The 2 of them, your daughter and her.
Yeah.
So you. I grew up in Drexel Hill, which is only outside of Philadelphia, which is only about it's only about an hour from Princeton, not far from there. What was it in your upbringing that got you on this journey, this quest, this food world quest?
It feels like a quest. Yeah. I feel like I'm a character in one of those old video games that I used to play as the quest for the best meal. Growing up, my mom and dad got divorced when I was really young. I was about 3 years old. And, my mom worked her butt off at several jobs, and she was a waitress at times. She sold Tupperware as a Tupperware manager. I mean, she did a lot of great things. My dad, one of the biggest mentors of mine as well. He's a successful dentist. He just retired actually on my birthday this year. Kudos, Dad. Congratulations.
Hey, way to go.
Yeah.
Hey, your parents did a good job on me too. So.
Honestly.
Well done, Mom and Dad.
Even though they were divorced, I gained so much from both of them and those that were in our lives. And so, earlier on with my mom working as much as she was, often we were left with Tupperware, stackable, microwavable meals. Like she would prepare the food and would go into these little vessels that would go in the microwave, and they kind of like cook in 3 different cook zones as the microwaves were going around in the container. So I was responsible for heating that up, and and we would eat it, or we would be left some money to get some pizza or whatever it might be. So culinarily speaking, my earlier years, and Mom was a good cook. She really was, and when she had the time, she would cook us delicious meals, and that was great. But I think that experience started me off on wondering what else is out there. What else can I do with food, right?
Yeah.
But my first job was at a small Italian restaurant, Teresa's Cafe in Princeton, New Jersey, and or just outside of Princeton. And I started as a dishwasher. And I was the dishwasher that was washing dishes, but I had, my head over my shoulder looking at the guys prepping stuff behind me all day long. It intrigued me, and I wanted to learn more. And one day, one of the guys kind of like waved over and said, hey, come on over. Do you want to learn how to make the pizza sauce with us? Meanwhile, what I didn't know is he just wanted me to stand there and grind the pizza, the tomatoes, as long as I could, until my arm hurt every day. So he didn't have to do it. But no, I started with that, and then he taught me how to make pizza dough. And before I knew it, I was learning how to like toss the pizza dough in the air and make the actual pizza. And I worked my way up from there and learned front of the house as well. I worked the pizza counter, and then I learned how to serve tables. And it was my junior year in high school. They had asked me if I wanted to start on the actual hotline cooking. And I said yes. So I did the pantry first, and then I worked my way into the hotline. And I just remember coming home one day and telling my mom and dad, I said, I think this is something I really want to do. This for my career. I love this. The ability to take, like I said earlier, raw ingredients and create something that can put a smile on someone's face. And I didn't know anything really about presentation back then. I didn't know anything about really pushing the envelope with creativity and modernist cuisine, I guess, as you would call it today. But learning the basics and just understanding how to cook something without burning it, right? How to, what the difference between grilling and sauteing and poaching and braising and all those different techniques. I was learning it on a small scale, at least, when I was, 16 years old. And I started as a freshman, so at 14. And so just working my way up that way and telling them, my dad, I remember he said, okay, then if this is what you want to do, we're going to get you into the best culinary school. So we applied to one school and one school only, the Culinary Institute of America, the CIA.
CIA, man.
CIA.
It is the Harvard of food. It is the place, man. Yeah.
It's got a wonderful reputation,
Yeah.
and there's a reason for it. I can tell you, going through the program, it was just a tremendous amount of learning and the staff that they have on their campus there. I think it's still today, at least back then it was, the only culinary school in the United States, actually maybe even in the world, with this many certified master chefs. Normally the master chefs, they're running master restaurants somewhere, but a lot of them, when they get into the I guess the age where they don't want the hustle and bustle anymore of the restaurant, but they have a lot to offer and they can teach a lot, so they take on these roles at these culinary schools. And I think at the time they had maybe 8 there, and there's just not too many master chefs actually in the world. So it was great to be able to learn from some of the best and to learn some of the techniques, the way that they have their whole program laid out. And, everything from basic skills to wines and menus and food safety. And, culinary math was the name of one of the classes. And I'm like, man, I never really did well in calculus. I was not a geometry kind of guy. I was like, how am I going to get through this? What does that actually mean? But when you actually think about when you have to convert a recipe or create a recipe, you have to learn what tablespoons, ounces, cups, all of that type of measurement, converting from grams to ounces, right? I mean, there's so much that you have to learn. But so understanding food costing is a huge part of being a successful restaurateur and being able to run a kitchen appropriately so that you can be profitable. That's what we're all in business for, hopefully. Right? Yeah. And so it was great. We went through a lot of intense training. So back in New Jersey, it was, I think, just being a part of a small restaurant that kind of lit this fire in me and helped me realize that I have a craft in me that I didn't realize at the time. And, I always joke, I have terrible handwriting. And I blamed it on Dad because, he's a dentist. And they always say doctors, dentists, right? Everyone in the medical field has terrible handwriting. They write their scripts and they just scribble. And that's the case for me too. I've tried to take my time with it, but I'm not good at it. So not good at that, not good at drawing and painting. I've developed a little bit of a better skill there. But so I was always kind of wondering, well, what is my skill? I don't know what it is. And so I felt it with this. It was something that connected with me, and it just grew from there. And it's been such a great journey.
So then you graduate. I've always had such a special place in my heart for the hospitality restaurant business in particular, because that was my background too. I was a dishwasher. I started out as a dishwasher.
Oh, that's great.
At what was the Ramada Inn, where at the entrance of Wiggins Pass Park now, there's a condo there that was then the Vanderbilt Inn. And my mentor boss who hired me, David Boyd, hired me at 12 when he wasn't supposed to, because he weren't allowed to work at 12, but he hired me anyway. And I was too little to reach the dishwashing machine. I was short. I still am short, but I had to stand in these crates, and he used to call me the Munchkin, but he gave me a shot. And I loved that kitchen. I loved working for him. He taught me so much about hard work, but also having fun and hard work. But in that business, you give up a lot of life. I mean, you're there every holiday, all hours, and it's a lot of hard work. So I know what it takes. It takes just a tremendous amount of sacrifice, I think, being in that business. And it was great to me. I still to this day, I talk to him on the phone a couple times a week now, which I'm grateful for. My mentor, who gave me a shot. And, I did the prep cook thing, and then was the breakfast cook on the weekends at 16, which I thought was the coolest thing. And having to get up at 5 a.m. when everybody else is sleeping in because they were out drinking on Friday night. Right. It gave me a lot of things that I have, a work ethic. It gave me my first car. I bought a piece of property. I did things that I wouldn't have been able to do because he gave me that shot. So I am forever grateful to the hospitality industry for the opportunity it gives people, and people will work hard and want to work their way up. And it got me through college, and I know how to cook now, and I love to cook. So it's special to me. But now you, at 19, graduate from the school of schools, literally the, top of the line culinary school. And what happens? How do you end up where you here, right?
Yeah. So during the 2.5-year program, there's right in the middle is they call it externship, but it's the internship portion of the schooling. And so we have an opportunity to browse thousands of different restaurants all over the United States and the world. Really, there's some outside of the country too that are approved externship sites. Each site has to have certain requirements in order to allow for an externship to come there. And the school really wants to promote your ability to be able to work through different stations, through different aspects of the business, so you can gain as much professional, real life experience before the school lets you off into the big world, right?
Yeah. Kind of like a doctor does rotations in different
exactly.
aspects of medicine.
Exactly. So I ended up choosing a restaurant down here called Maxwell's on the Bay, which you're familiar with,
Very
one of
much
your
so.
locations right there in Venetian Village. And so my grandparents lived here at the time in Naples, so I got to stay with them, which I was very grateful for, because I remember I was working the steamer station many nights, and Maxwell's was known for a lot of their seafood that they did, and they had lobster night. They had this beautiful lobster tank up front. They would get all the live lobsters in, and I was on the steamer station, so you can imagine that a lot of the lobsters that come through the door get steamed, and then you have to take your knife and crack the shell and crack the claws, and then it goes out and they get to eat it. But lobster night was probably their most popular night of the week. And at the end of a lobster night for me, I wore a white chef coat. I was covered in lobster guts from head to toe. The green roe and just like all the slop from, breaking down lobsters, which it was great. It was a cool experience. But to get that jacket white again was impossible. And Grandma knew how to do it. She was amazing. She would get those jackets crisp, clean, and
coat,
white.
right? The chef coat,
Chef coat every single week. So it was great. So living with them was wonderful, and just being as close to to the restaurant was great. So I was there for a year. I was there for about 8 months, I think was the internship. And then after I graduated from school the following year, I came back down and I worked at Maxwell's again. I really loved it. And then I had dined at Chop City Grill on Fifth Avenue and fell in love with what they were doing at the time. They were one of the most innovative restaurants down here. Skip Quillen and Tom Gilbertson were the owners at the time. And
that was their first venture here? Was that Skip's first Chops?
No, Pazzo was actually his first, which was next door.
Okay.
And then
Right.
Chops, then Yaba.
Okay.
And then they opened up Chop City Grill in Bonita. And then Blue Water Bistro, and it just kept going from there. They turned that into the saloon, just super successful. And Skip became a big mentor of mine as well, because he's a trained chef, went to school as well, and he was kind of a step above a lot of the people down here. So I really gravitated towards everything that he had to offer, and so he asked if I wanted to be a part of their opening team, their management team at Chop City Grill in Bonita. So I had about a year before it was going to be complete. And I went back home. I was working during the summers back home in New Jersey at a country club, two country clubs. One was Forsgate and the other one was called the TPC at Jasna Polana. And there was a French chef there named Patrick Verret, who is probably the number one culinary mentor, and he taught me a lot about not just cooking, but a lot about how to treat people and how to interact with people. We can talk about him later. But anyway, Patrick was friends with, or still is friends with, Daniel Boulud, who is one of the premier chefs of the world. He's from Lyon, France. He owns Danielle, a restaurant Danielle in Manhattan, Cafe Boulud. I can go on for probably another 10 minutes telling you about all the names of the different restaurants he owns today. But I knew that I had about a year, and I wanted to get the best experience that I could to prepare me for what was to come, because I was still very young, and the restaurant was set to open right around when I turned 21. So I spoke to Chef Patrick about it, and he got me into work at Cafe Boulud. So I worked a little at Restaurant Danielle, a little bit at Cafe Boulud. I was there for the opening of DB Bistro, which is another one in Times Square. And it was one of the most intense work experiences of my life. Every day I learned something so above what I thought food to be. And just about every day I came home from work crying because of the intensity. Everything, when you go into a 3 Michelin star restaurant, your expectations are super high. So for the chef or the owner, for the team, you have to make sure that you meet the mark on every dish, or a critic could be in that night and your reputation can go down the tubes pretty quickly. So if a dish wasn't right when it came down the line and chef was there, not Danielle, but my executive chef at the time, or the sous chefs at the time, and it did not look the way that it was supposed to, it was getting thrown in the garbage and we needed to make a new one, and it had to be immediately. So the intensity was just always there. I wasn't accustomed to that at the time. So anyway, I got that experience, came back down, opened up Chops in Bonita. I was there for about 5 years, an amazing experience for me. And I just remember being, 20, 21 years old, and, guys that are twice my age that I'm now in charge of.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you take that on, right? That's a challenge for me because I don't think these guys are going to respect me. They don't think that I know much. And I heard the grumbling, like, who's this guy think he is,
Yeah, sure.
And I'm not, I'm a very, I'm a very positive person, but I make sure that I earn people's respect. I don't feel like it's an expected thing in this world. And I remember there was a manager that I worked for who said something that I love. He said, when we meet, you have 100% of my respect. It's your job to keep it. And, and that kind of sits with me. And I think when I talk to people about the relationships I like to build with people, respect is a huge part of it. And I go in with 100% respect, but I do not expect that people give that same thing to me. And not often everyone does. So I knew that I needed to earn their respect. And the only way I knew how was to just show them that I have great work ethic and that I'm willing to do anything for them. So I remember coming in every day and I would just set up all their stations. I would prep everything as early as I could before they even walked in. Because when I first got out of culinary school, I knew nothing about creativity, about how to blend spices together and ingredients together to create something that would taste good. So much of it was trial and error.
Yeah.
You said earlier about the food industry, that it's not necessarily always a science. There is a huge science behind cooking. How the cooking process actually occurs, when caramelization is happening, what is actually happening in the pan, proteins and sugars converting, over to create this caramel flavor, this Maillard reaction it's called, where, you're gaining different flavor components and profiles and coloration and all of that. So there's a huge science behind it. And how you make an emulsification, such as a mayonnaise, that's shelf stable, or, a hollandaise. It's a warm emulsification. Just something as simple as a vinaigrette. You remember the old 7 C's vinaigrette packets?
Yes.
You'd open it up into that glass container.
You'd pour a certain amount of
certain amount of vinegar, a certain amount of oil, and you would have this fully separated concoction. And when you shake the whole thing up and put it down, for a moment, it's emulsified, right?
Yes.
And it's taking the fat and the acid and making them combined as one. So there's a huge science behind it in that regard. But there's so much opportunity for creativity. And so having the opportunity to learn from my peers and those that were a part of that early on team at Chop City Grill, once they understood that I was there for them and I had their backs, as soon as they'd walk in and I'd say, hey, your station's set, everything's ready to go tonight. Do you mind helping me with the features for tonight, the specials? And they lit up. They were like, yeah, that's great. So it was through that sort of early on collaboration with them where they were happy to be able to provide that. And I was super happy to be able to have them do it because I wasn't ready to do it myself. And then I developed my palate that way. And I started to be able to try things and understand what things tasted good to me, at least. And I think once I established what I understood to be good, that my palate recognizes as being good, I would then test it on others and say, hey, I think this tastes well seasoned. I think this is, a good balance of flavors. What do you think? And once my team started getting on board, then I started testing it with the public, and I would put features together and I get instant feedback from them. So, earlier on, I think that was my way of developing in a lot of ways. And so from Chops, I went to Crew at the Bell Tower Shops in Fort Myers. I was there for 2.5 years. I worked my way up from, I actually took a step down as a line cook just because I wanted to get my foot in the door there after 4 years of being an executive chef. And worked my way up to sous chef to executive chef and ultimately as an operating partner there.
Why the move? What was the...
As young as I was starting at Chops, I had learned so much, but I wanted to get more experience from different places, from different people. And again, as I was a leading, as a manager from such an early age, it was hard to be to learn. It was hard to learn other than just practicing myself and learning from the people that I worked with day in and day out.
Yeah.
But, there's so much more out there.
It's a new challenge for you.
New
Yeah.
challenge, and new environment. And honestly, going from, we were in Bonita, but going up to South Fort Myers, totally different clientele base too.
Yeah.
And this was pre-COVID. So there were a lot of, the doctors and the mortgage brokers and the bankers and those that loved to frequently dine. They had, plenty of money to be able to use, in the restaurants. So we could create things that just blew people's minds, and it didn't really matter what it cost to them. It was just they wanted something that was the next new thing, right? And the most creative that they could get. So we were flying ingredients in from around the U.S., around the world, and just creating stuff that I still to this day I'm really proud of what we put together. And Shannon Yates, who was the owner at the time, or co-owner at the time, and executive chef. He passed actually after COVID, from COVID.
Oh, wow.
And but he was a huge mentor. He really knew how to drive flavor and just build an experience. When people come in, you want them to leave going, I got to come back here again, and I got to tell all my friends about it.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot of that there.
Did you have a lot of creative freedom there? Were you able to do a lot?
That was my favorite part. And actually, I did at Chops in a lot of ways too. But, the menu at Crew, we had a lot of staples, but we could be very flexible with what we put out on the plate, especially with our features. We could, some exotic ingredients we would bring in. I had ostrich eggs in there once, and we would do bison on the menu, and elk and venison, like a lot of exotic meats and things. But I would say what really stuck with me the most was the vegetables that we would get in from a place called the Chef's Garden. And it's located in Huron, Ohio. And they do some of the most amazing organic vegetables that you would ever imagine. And some of them are hybrid and heirloom varieties, but the colors and the different sizes and just the creativity that goes into what they do there. Farmer Lee Jones is the name of the owner of it right now. His family created this just amazing place. And when you go around to some of the most prestigious restaurants, even in the world, at one point in time, if not still today, they order a lot of their specialty produce from that company, and they ship it all over the world. They overnight it. So it was a great way for me to understand that part of the industry, because farming is such a huge part of what makes our jobs either a success or not. And the way that the industry over decades of time has changed from all organic, organic wasn't even really a named thing, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because everything was organic. There was no need to process. There was no need to, enhance, enrich things with bleach and with think about what happens to wheat now, and why so many allergies have become today a problem is because of the way that foods are being processed now. And it's a shame in a lot of ways. And if you look at the farming industry and commodities, just how things have had to happen over the years, because Americans especially, we want it, and we want it now. When you go, my wife and I, and actually Remy now, we love to travel, and we've gone to Italy. We just got off of a cruise. We were in Iceland and Norway and England, and my wife and I, we've done a lot of great places. And when we go there, obviously for me and for Nicole, it's about what can we learn in the culinary world.
Yeah, you have to. It's kind of part of your...
We want to go to some of the best fresh restaurants, or we want to go to some of the best places that we can learn from. And but what was the most striking was their ingredients, the flavors of the tomato, the flavor of just everything. But that, especially when we were inland in Italy, it's amazing how whatever is indigenous to that area is really all you see on the menus. And I just remember them saying, I think we wanted to order some fish one night, and we couldn't because they were not serving fish. It was only meat. And we quickly learned that if you're a coastal area there, that's when you get to enjoy the things that are from the coast. If you're inland, you're getting all the steak you can eat, and poultry and meats. So it doesn't happen as much here. If we want fish flown in from somewhere, we get it flown in. If we want, beef from another region or beef locally, that's what we get. And, if you want strawberries when they're not in season, you go to South America, you go to wherever it is that they're being grown.
Yeah.
And there's the convenience factor, but you're not getting it at its peak. You're not getting the best quality. You're not getting, food the way that it's meant to be eaten.
Yeah.
So much of what I learned through going to the chef's garden and touring their facility and understanding farming and understanding composting and understanding the way that it should be done.
Yeah.
It sparked a new curiosity in me to just learn about food the way that it should be.
Yeah.
And so we try our best to source the best possible, quality food and ingredients that we can all year round. And I think it's something that we all should do and shop at the right places to source our food and our ingredients.
Yeah. I love what you bring up because it has me understand it better. That is not organic as a marketing tactic. That is organic, what organic originally was. Organic
Correct.
was
right.
this. It was
I'm
organic.
glad that you touched on that because you're right. It became a marketing thing because those that were willing to do it right wanted to be recognized for it, number one.
Yeah.
But also, if I'm a farmer and I want to produce the best quality ingredients and stock for anyone, and I want it to be sold, I have to educate people, and I've got to spend a lot of time helping you understand why buying it conventionally and buying it organic, why buying it organic is better.
Yeah.
And so I think companies put a lot of marketing dollars into helping the general public understand it. The problem is it was so much more expensive. And so for those that couldn't afford it, it didn't make a difference to them if they were eating an eggplant that was organic or not. Right? The flavor profile, maybe they could taste a little bit of difference, but to them, it was more about the dollar.
Right.
And I think a lot of America and a lot of the world today still struggles with that is why, why do I have to spend so much more on it? But I will tell you that, especially now where my health is so much more important to me, buying organic and buying quality and buying from reputable sources that are going to be what they say they're going to be, you're avoiding the sickness that's coming down the pipeline for those that are not spending the time educating themselves.
Yeah.
Because when we pump ourselves full of ingredients and stuff that just doesn't belong in our bodies,
right?
It's not going to go very well for you, and that's going to catch up with you over time. And now more than ever, while I'm trying to get back, health wise, I'm trying to get physically fit again and build my strength. What I put in my body is the most important thing. So, marketing became such a huge part of this and selling it to the public. But unfortunately, because of the way of the world, everyone would try to do anything they could to put that organic label on their food, even if it really was not organic.
Yes.
So they were bending the rules and breaking, the rules to try to get there. But it's very important, very, very important.
Well, I think it's very real what you say, and it maybe reiterates what my wife and I were thinking as we were in Europe last summer, the summer before, and she could eat foods and we could eat foods that we would eat here, and we felt fine. We felt great. We normally don't eat a lot of carbs, but eating a croissant or eating some of the breads felt fine. Didn't feel that bloated, swollen feeling that we had. We felt great. Like it was okay to eat it.
Yes, because they're grinding the wheat right outside their backyard and they're making it into the flours that are producing that stuff with. And to that point, my wife has a gluten allergy. And when she eats gluten of any kind, she'll get a really bad migraine. And, and it'll sometimes go on for days and days. So whenever she gets it, we're like, okay, what did you eat? Let's think about it.
Yeah.
What could it have been? There's so many things that have, wheat and soy in them today that you don't even know. And even if you turn over the label, you're probably not going to read the form that it's in, right? Because you don't understand some of the stuff that's on labels anymore.
Right.
So I remember we were in Italy, and they're very, very good when it comes to gluten allergies. Sans glutina, that's what they say there, right? Because that's without gluten. And we were told that you can eat the flour in Italy. It is nothing like what you get here. And so try it. Try some pasta. Try some bread. So she did it the first time. We were nervous. And we went, I think it was like a week and a half, and she was on like a gluten party. It was very, we would still be very conscious and careful of it. But I mean, it's unbelievable how much different it is to eat it when it's not modified, when it's not, additives aren't added to it. And, one of the reasons that she can do that is because of the processing that happens or that doesn't happen there, right?
Yeah.
So it's unbelievable. And there's actually a restaurant here locally that uses imported flour direct from Italy, and she can eat it as well, and it doesn't give her the same effect.
I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Somebody was talking about that. Yeah. What is that?
Truly. name
Yes.
of it, truly.
Yeah, somebody's talking to me about that.
It's a
Yeah.
great little spot. There's others too that do it too. I think a couple of the bakeries here in town also, you know. But
Did you do somewhere in there? Did you do a backpack trip? And did you go to in Europe somewhere?
So I wouldn't call it full backpack, but after graduating from CIA, my girlfriend at the time and we traveled all through Europe. We flew into London and we went through the Channel down to Paris, and we went all through France, Italy, Austria, Switzerland, Amsterdam, and Spain. And it was amazing. So yes, we had backpacks. We were staying in hostels. You know, that was the majority of what we were doing. We'd splurge like every few days or every week. We would go to like a 1 or 2 star hotel if we could. But
because a hostel, you're like sharing a room with a bunch of other people, right?
And it was not something we were. I mean, we just came out of dorm life.
Yes, it didn't matter, right?
Kind of the same.
$10 a night,
and we were still young. Yeah, but it was really all about how can we get through Europe and still what we want to spend our money on was any restaurant we could afford, right? So that was where we did it. But I remember like I rolled up my suit and that was in the backpack, and just so I had something to be able to go to those places. Right.
Awesome.
You got to do what you got to do. But no, that type of experience is awesome. Travel is such an amazing part of our lives now, and now that I'm feeling a little bit more like myself, I don't want to miss anything in life anymore. So I want to try to give Remy what I can and exposure to what we can to see the world, and in hopes that it'll spark something that'll inspire her as she continues to grow and learn as well. Today was her first day at school.
Oh, how awesome.
I know.
Very exciting. Oh, wow.
So exciting.
Wow.
Exciting.
How old is she?
She's 3.5 now. So I say first day of school.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
It's pre-K 3. Yeah. But it's it's a big milestone. And she's amazing. We love it.
So, you were talking about experiences, and I wanted to ask, like, what, and you've touched on it a little bit, how has life changed for you personally and professionally
since the accident?
Yeah.
So personally, obviously the physical aspects, my body is still nowhere near where it was before the accident. And I've got a lot of rehabilitation, a lot of future medical stuff that I'm going to deal with memory loss and just stuff that they've learned through my brain scans and all that stuff. But so I think physically, building strength is the part that's still the toughest. I have daily pains. I've got nerve damage in my left foot that is constant pain all day long. Pain, tingling, numbness, like it's just something that I'm understanding now that I'm going to deal with for the rest of my life. Had some bladder issues, which has caused me to have to self-catheterize every day now, and stuff that not everybody knows about me. And when you see me on the streets now, and those that have known me from before, especially like last night's dinner, they're like, "Gosh, you look great. It looks like nothing happened." And although that makes me feel great, because I was also worried that I was going to come out of this looking broken, it prompts me to think, well, it might look the same on the outside, but if you only knew what was going on the inside. And so that's something that kind of sits with me, and I know that that's going to be a long-term battle that I'm going to be struggling with. And but again, when you have to look at the silver lining and everything and look at the good and everything, I'm still here, and I'm here for my daughter and my wife and my family and my friends and my teams. And it could have looked a heck of a lot different. So I'm left personally a lot more grateful, I'd say, than ever, and just pushing forward in the best way I can. Professionally, being back in the kitchen, it was invigorating. It was the first day back. I remember messaging Nicole and saying, I have not felt this good in years, because it had been 3 years since I had stepped foot in my own kitchens. I started practicing a little bit at home, but part of the issue is I can't stand on my feet as long as I used to without a lot of pain. So working through that, building up my own strength and stamina, but being back in the kitchen, in some ways, it's kind of like relearning some of the things that I knew I had, or that I knew before. But it's kind of like riding a bike. You get back on the saddle and it just clicks again. And even last week, or the last dinner I did with Chef Asif from 21 Spices, we did another collaborative dinner with him. And I remember messaging Nicole and saying, something along the lines of, I feel like I still got it. It really feels great. But when you cook, especially professionally, so much of it is about timing. Not just to get a recipe right, but when you're working on the line and you're cooking for hundreds of people, sometimes at the same time, there's a lot of technique and timing involved in, let's say, sautéing. At a restaurant, if I was going to sear 10 pieces of fish at the same time and rotate them in and out of the oven and get my sauces ready and make sure the risotto is, on point and seasoned right and not, overcooking the pasta that's in the water. All that's happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
And to do that as tickets are still coming in, to read the ticket, to make sure the next order is ready to go, it takes a lot of multitasking, a lot of timing, a lot of skill and talent. And, if you don't do that for a while, you kind of lose your edge, you lose your touch, like anyone would in any industry.
Yeah.
And so I remember searing the fish for this event, and and I had 8 pans out at the same time, all at different temperatures, and there I was, just kind of back in my element. And I felt like the timing was on, and you know it when you flip the fish over and you see a perfect golden sear on it. And when I was putting them on the sheet tray after, and I had now 34 pieces that were all the same golden color.
Oh, yeah.
I left that day saying, okay, I still got it. There's parts of me that I still need to work on very hard, but at least I know the basis is there. At least I know I'm going to get back in touch with what truly inspired me from the beginning with this. So a lot of, I think, professionally for me, it's reconnecting with my creative drive now, just building the next best thing for us with Crave. Going back to surrounding myself with people that are better than me my whole life, it's no different within my business. When I hire an executive chef, when I hire a sous chef, I want them to be stellar because they need to represent the business well, but I also want them to be able to bring something to the business and to be able to collaborate with them to build something better than I could have done on my own.
Yeah.
And so that is part of what continues to keep me driven to build Crave to the next level, because I know that collectively we still have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
And I know that we're gonna continue to be innovators in our industry and hopefully in this community for a long time to come.
Spoken like there's a common theme with you, and it's this servant leadership that you bring always, and this serial optimism, which you have to have as an entrepreneur. You have
It's
to.
true.
The glass always has to be half full, no matter what, and you embody that and bring it everywhere. And it's as you be successful as you are, which is awesome to see. So, and hear and to be around, because it's infectious. It's it creates that vibe. And I remember it working in the kitchen so well with David, and that I just loved being there. He created this space that was just vibrant, exciting, fun, even though we had to work hard and there was a lot of pressure, and always was, and even as a breakfast cook at the time. But I remember I was serving scrambled eggs at the time, and I was just scrambling, like they're just scrambled, like big deal, put them on the thing. And he took the pan and he threw them in the trash. He said, "Would you want to be served eggs that look like that?" It was so important. The presentation of a scrambled egg, it was a big deal. You want it to look a way that is inviting. And I'll never forget that moment when he did that to me, because I just thought scrambled eggs were just scrambled eggs, it was a big deal. But that team, that environment, it's a special place. And like you said, and I think it takes a rare type of person with a lot of humility to have people around them who might be better at some things than them, especially as the leader, the CEO, the owner, to be surrounded by, because some people take that as a threat. It's almost like a threat to their who they are when other people are around them. But when you build those other people, because you've done it over time, and it shows that you build others up, and it lifts everybody when you do that, when you're.
It does 100%. And I think even early on, just trying to get our minds aligned in a lot of ways. Like my younger team with Crave, our catering company, and I say younger, some of them were way older than I am, but it was the younger team, meaning the starting team. Who are we going to be to this community? Who are we going to be to ourselves? What type of food do we want to create? What type of experience do we want to create? And there was a lot of a journey, I think, for us to kind of explore, what are the possibilities? And I just remember having these little, we'll call them meetings, I guess, where I would bring all of them around. I would have a bunch of food for us and beverage, and we would just sift through cookbooks. So we'd challenge each other. Hey, each of us come up with 10 new hors d'oeuvres, 10 new entrees, and let's just sit at the table and we'll just talk about them. We'll see what comes of it. Whatever, we'll do our top 10 in each category, and then we'll try them in the kitchen this week. And that was kind of the start to this just amazing process for us, where it was digging deep into our hearts and our minds and seeing what was out there and saying, how can we incorporate our own experiences to make something spectacular? And the ideas just bounce off of each other, and they get better and better and better and better within minutes. And it's just super cool to, to have that collaboration. And I learned early on that it was an uplifting experience for everybody. The fact that I created a platform for them to be able to be creative like that, it was no different than the chefs that did that for me in the past. And I recognized how important that is in someone. And like you said earlier, our industry is a tough industry. I mean, number one, you're in this hot kitchen all day long. I mean, and it's sometimes that alone can make you dehydrated and just exhausted at the end of the day, which I think is why typically you see the industry goes out for drinks afterwards, right?
Yeah, right.
Because
It's notorious for that.
yeah, I mean, it's like you go out, one, because you've been
Relief.
stressed all day and
Yeah.
you need a relief from it. Two, it's like it's just a way to kind of like disconnect your brain from the stress of the day, and and you get to talk to people that are in the same situation as you from other restaurants and stuff. I wasn't a huge bar person at all. I would occasionally go out for a drink, but I was really focused on the work aspect and how to build the business. And, and I had a very dedicated and talented team. And, but, you do have to find a special person to really get through every day what we do. And especially in this area in catering, in the catering side of it, because we've got clients that are very well traveled, that they come from these trips that they go on around the world. And the number one thing they say is, hey, either we want to give you carte blanche, all the creative drive for our menu, or it's, I traveled to this and this country and I had this type of dish. I want you to recreate this for our guests.
Wow.
And that's a huge challenge sometimes, especially if we've never eaten it ourselves. We've never been there before.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of research and development. It takes a lot of trial and error. And but at the end of it, when we can wow them with the work, I mean, it's awesome. It's so awesome. It's very rewarding. And I think that's one of the things that I gained the most from this industry. I mentioned that, when you can create something and give it to someone and kind of get that instant gratification or acceptance or not, you get that instant feedback, I should call it, whether they like it or not. And you see their facial expressions and you hear hopefully their comments about it. It makes, and for us with Crave, I mean, we get that in people's homes and their businesses, and it's every day. When you're in a closed kitchen restaurant, often you don't get to touch the guests much, right? And so you depend on the feedback you get from the servers or from, maybe online reviews that you get.
Yeah.
So for us with Crave, it's great because we get a lot more of that instant feedback, and that helps drive us more, and it helps us make the changes that are necessary to improve things that maybe our palates aren't really sensing or thinking about, So it takes a special person and someone that's got a lot of stamina and patience and mental capacity, and it's a lot, but it's wonderful and rewarding if you can be surrounded by the right people.
Yeah, I never considered that feedback loop of being able to sense the experience of what I just served or delivered when you closed off behind in a closed kitchen and not seeing it, experiencing it. And sometimes that could be a little scary too, because you're seeing, what's that look on their face? Do they have gas, or do they love the food?
Being in an open kitchen, especially at Chops, that was my first open kitchen experience. And every night I would explain to the team, we're on stage, because everyone in this dining room can see us. So every night we treat like a performance. Truly, I mean, you're a team. And, I started with sports at a younger age, and I learned what a team was about. But when you're on a team like this and you're performing at this kind of high stress level and high pace, fast paced environment, it takes a lot. And so to be able to, from the line, and we call it the cook line, right? To be able to look over and you can see your guest eating the dishes you just prepared. It's amazing. For me, when I would expedite, let's say, I could actually time everything more appropriately because I could turn around and see that Robert needed a little bit more water poured and that you needed maybe some more silverware and that your salad course was just cleared, or, that you're ready for the next course, or that your hand was up trying to get somebody's attention. These are things that I, as the kind of conductor of this culinary experience, I could interject and help with and really help build the experience and the timing of the experience as best as possible. But there's parts of it too where when you're on stage, you really can't do some of the stuff that happens in a lot of kitchens, right?
Yeah,
You got to have a very clean environment.
Right.
You got to make sure that
Can't lose it.
You're not cursing, and like, oh, Mrs. Smith sent her steak back because it was a quarter of a degree overcooked or undercooked. And most chefs would be, cursing at Mrs. Smith. So, but it's. I think that has developed for me and a lot of the people that worked with us there. Developed a sense of professionalism, because you need to carry that when you're on stage, and so. I think that was a huge part for me of growth and really helped me understand the importance of it. But back to that instant feedback, when I was younger and I worked at Chops before opening the one in Bonita, I worked the wok station. I don't know if you've ever been to Chops, but at the very end of the cook line is 6 seats that you could reserve or you could just walk in and sit at. And you're right there in front of my station. And one of the things we would do is we would create this amuse-bouche, which in French is like a palate excitement, excites the palate, right? So it starts you off, your senses off, by communicating from the palate to the brain and saying, this tastes good. I want something more. So we would have the ability to create these little, 2 or 3 biters. And so for me, again, I was young. I didn't really know how to make things work. I was just kind of trying things for the first time. And so I'd create these little dishes and then hand it over and hope for the best reaction.
Yeah.
And I would ask them, please tell me, what would you do better? What would you want to see this taste like or look like? And so it was a great way for me to just practice. And so that was, I think, the start to this journey of the feedback and how important that feedback is for us.
How cool as a guest that is too, to be able to give open feedback, to solicit open feedback like that, where there's this freedom to, I'm not going to hurt your feelings because you asked me for it, so I'm going to tell you and be a part of the process too.
Yeah.
That's very
cool. And a lot
cool.
of chefs don't want to hear it, and I will say that it is tough when you hear something that you poured a lot of love into, and they were like, "Yep, it wasn't that good." So it took some time to get past that.
That was good training for you. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
When did the thought to leave the security of a partner or what were you in Fort Myers? What was the
operating partner there?
Yeah. So when did the thought come into your mind that I'm going to go on my own and do this company, Crave?
It was a little after, the housing boom that turned into a housing crash, around like 2007 and 8, where, especially the restaurant industry, it was so hard to get people to spend money anymore. So restaurants were closing and, real estate was going upside down. So the mortgage brokers and the real estate agents, they didn't have money. They didn't have business anymore. So there's a lot of uncertainty and unknown. And I think Fort Myers got hit the hardest, down here at least.
Yeah.
And the business is the hardest. So I had gotten a phone call from a headhunter that was looking to fulfill a position down in Naples. And at the time, I was still very happy with Crew, so I declined. But about a week later, they called back and said, "Are you sure? We really want to connect you with the owners. We think you would be a really good fit." And so I said, okay. A week had passed, and I already saw the writing was kind of on the wall in Fort Myers. Things were happening already and closing. And so I started to think maybe I need to find something that might be a little bit more long-term secured. So I talked to them, and I was halfway through the conversation. They were telling me about this restaurant that had been in existence for 20 years. They were going to renovate and elevate everything about it, and they wanted to bring a whole new kind of big city feel, steakhouse and seafood, and it all sounded really great. And I said, well, I got to ask you, where is this located? What is the name of it? They said, oh, well, we were Maxwell's on the Bay and we're renovating and turning into M Waterfront Grill.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I did my internship with you guys.
Wow.
And I actually had known the owners, but not too intimately. And so we hit it off immediately again. And the conversation was already going very well. And after some negotiation over a few more conversations, I went full force into opening M Waterfront Grill. So I stayed there for about 5 years with them. And it was a wonderful experience. Chris and Peter Serino are amazing. And they are still one of the original owners of longest standing restaurants here in Naples.
Yeah,
I think now they're at 30 something years, 35 maybe years. So kudos to them. They're awesome. And the restaurant's just still continuing to put out great quality food. Anyway, so being there for 5 years, and now I had 3 long stints working under some great ownership, learning and developing my own, skills. And I was invited by Chef Harold Balling, who owns Harold's in Fort Myers, to do a event with the Southwest Florida Food and Wine Fest. So there's a Naples Winter Wine Festival and the Southwest Florida Wine and Food Fest. And so I did it. It was unbelievable. I got the experience to do one of the wine dinners as well. And I think that was what turned my journey. Being able to create the type of food that I love in more of an intimate environment where I'm not dealing with 400 or 500 covers. I'm not dealing with anything more than the menu that we have created for that evening.
Yeah.
And it was special and it was connective and it was interactive and it was personalized and all of what I love to do that I had. I'm going to use the word control, even though there's not so much control as I'm going to, I guess, state here. But the control meaning when you cater a dinner like this, you're not dealing with reservations coming in staggered. You're not dealing with different menu items. You have a set menu and when it starts, you can kind of dictate when the next course is coming. The journey you create a timeline for it, and then you just stick to that timeline. And I like that because it allows for us to do more with the food and more with the experience than you could in a regular restaurant. So having that experience, being able to go out and talk about the course in front of everyone, it was everything that I wanted. So I remember coming home one day and I said to Nicole, we were dating at the time, we weren't yet married. And I said, I think I want to try to do a business involving that whole experience. Can I do just like wine dinners? It would be great.
Yeah.
But I was making really good money at M Waterfront Grill. And I said, I don't know if this is the right move, but I want to try it. So it took a lot of soul searching, and I took the leap of faith. Nicole stayed at her full-time job. I think at the time she was at Gulf Shore Life magazine. And I said, I got to do this. I got to figure out what this could mean for me. I knew my work ethic. I knew, my connections in the community here. And I just hoped that, that God would direct me in the right way. And so it was late 2012. I gave my notice. I think I gave like 3 months notice. And I didn't want to ruin the relationship that I had developed with M and the guys, and I took that leap of faith, like I call it, and it was a great start to the journey. In the beginning, I was booking 10 to 15 person dinners, not super lucrative, but at least something that was manageable, that I knew I could deliver something that would be worth the price point. Because when you're hiring a caterer, you're not just buying the food and beverage. You have to also buy the service team. I shouldn't say buy, but pay for, the service team, the chefs and their time, whether it's the prep time or the actual execution time of the event, and so many other details, whether we're providing the rentals, the silverware, glassware, plateware, linens, things like that, floral, entertainment. With Crave, we add it all now, and we really try to build this huge package that allows for our clients to look at us as kind of a one-stop shop. So if you don't want to deal with the headaches of planning the party from ground zero, we can build it all the way to execution with you. So it was right around 2012, and I started this. Nicole took about 3 years, I think, to really get our feet wet with this and realize, okay, financially we can make this work, where she came over full time and was our director of operations.
It was 3 years in that she came over?
I think it was early of 2016 is when she actually came on full time.
She made the leap,
And from there, we developed Crave Culinaire in so many great ways. We, at some point, I think in 16, we started the Crave event staffing business. So it's more hospitality focused staffing. So let's say here at the salon, you want to have champagne and chocolates passed around during a little special event you're doing. You don't necessarily need the full on catering. You don't need, a chef to even be there.
Yeah.
So we would have a trained bartender that you would hire, and we would provide the chocolates, or you could provide the chocolates, and we could provide the champagne, or you could provide the champagne. And our bartender would be part of the Crave event staffing module that we created. So that platform's been great for places like the waterside shops and some country clubs, and places that don't necessarily need the full-on catering, but they can still hire staff. Even if you have a little dinner at your home and you're like, you know what, I like to cook. I just don't want to finish, right? Because I want to be able to enjoy the dinner with my family or my friends.
Yeah.
So you can prep it to the point that you want, and then you can hire one of our chefs to come in and actually execute the dinner for you.
How cool is that?
So there's a lot of different, a lot of flexibility with that. But then we opened up our first event venue called Venue Naples. And we were in business through after the first year of COVID. But during COVID, as you can imagine, you can't do events anymore. You have to be 6 feet apart from everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, our business was just, it was shot. So we went to all to-go food, and we started Crave to Go and Crave Pantry, and that, proved to be a very smart move. We were using our, it was an 8,000 square foot building, but 5,000 square feet of it was our event venue. So we lined up tables, and we were staging our to-go food out of the front area.
Wow.
Deliveries were going out the back door all day long. We were collaborating with people like Norman Love Confections and Estero Bay Olive Oil, and getting all their products together and delivering them in a one-stop shop to people's homes.
That's awesome.
What
a pivot point. What a great,
we had
right. You got to
we
back against the
wall. We wanted
wall.
to stay in business. We had to. But the event venue was great. We got to be creative with our own space, do our own pop-up dinners and, fun shows and magic and, just a bunch of cool themed events that we would do there. And from there, we grew into our restaurant management group. So we have Crave Management Group, where we run and operate private restaurants. Right now, they're all private. Some in communities. We've got Gather at Valencia Trails. We've got Kinsale, which is a new golf club. It's only been open this past year, since last November. It's right across from Kalia Bay. There's a beautiful plot of land on the corner of Wiggins Pass and Vanderbilt. And they built a stellar, really like world-renowned golf course there. It's really, truly all about golf, but we're honored to be their food and beverage program there. They hired us to come on and do that.
Wow, awesome.
We're in a temporary space until their clubhouse is built, but we're already talking about what the future looks like, and it looks as if they're interested in having us come and be their full-time food and beverage in the actual clubhouse too, which will hopefully happen at the end of the season.
That's a selling point for them to have your name with them too. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
You would think like that's this is who we have. We don't just have a kitchen. We have, the best in the area. That's kind of cool.
Well, when we first sat with them and we talked about this experience, this temporary portion of it is under a dining tent, so we're outdoors, and our kitchen is actually in a long food trailer. So imagine like a very long food truck that has pretty much every piece of equipment we would need to create a great menu.
I was going to ask you about that.
But our catering kitchen is 12 minutes away. So the idea is throughout the course of the week, we'll prep a majority of the food there, and then it gets transported over to the truck for service that day. So we're constantly bringing our ingredients over to ensure that we've got the quality we need and the availability, because we can't store things in bulk, at least, on site, because we don't have a walk-in refrigerator there. We've only got whatever refrigeration is there on the truck. So it's good. But when we first talked to them, they told us the vision, and they said, this is what this platform will look like. Do you think it's something you can take on? But we need to elevate this to a level that speaks to the same level of golf that we're providing. I think it costs like $425 a year to just be a member.
425,000.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I know. I had to ask that number again just to learn if that was actually what they said. It's insane. So, we now have this big responsibility on us to deliver the best of the best to them. So, and we try our hardest to do that every day. But the restaurant management group is something that we want to grow. We want to expand upon. We're actually in the process of a renovation at Crave. We've moved our corporate offices so our catering management team and management team can be over in a new office space around the corner. And we knocked down some walls and started a renovation inside to increase our kitchen capacity, our warehouse space, and our tasting room, so we can still provide tastings for our weddings and our corporate clients that want to try the food ahead of time. So it's part of this journey, I think, for us, and in this next step for Crave now that I feel like I can be a little bit more involved, and continue to help grow the businesses, we want the restaurant arm to grow. We want to be able to take on more with catering, potentially have our business name in other cities. We already had started pre-COVID to be up in the Sarasota, Bradenton area, but we have started to cater a little bit more over in Fort Lauderdale and Miami and West Palm Beach areas, and that's a spot that, if we do it right, we've always tried to make calculated decisions. To maybe put a satellite kitchen over there and start a little miniature version of Crave and see where it goes. So that's something that I think we're thinking about a little bit, and we'll see what comes of it. But one step at a time, and this is kind of the program that we've got here now locally.
What is that like for you to? Because you got to have people in play. I mean, to be able to ensure that my creative way is going to be implemented 110 miles from here, and I'm not going to be there to make sure that it goes out the way that I need to see it. What's that like?
Oh man, that I think is the hardest thing for anyone, like in any business, right? To think about, is your vision going to be replicated in the appropriate way if you're not there? Yeah. And I think I've had to look at that on a different scale within my business even today. Like, let's just talk about from the accident to today. My team had to rally together and figure out how to run Crave without me. And that was a big change for everyone, you know, and even just from the administrative side, doing the pricing for every invoice, that was either me or it was Nicole. Nobody else did anything on the financials or any of that. Wow. So my best friend Beej from up in Maryland, he's also a chef. He runs a catering company up there amongst a few other businesses. And he flew down to just be with Nicole and be with the team. And they had to make a lot of adjustments and changes. But, it showed a lot about what we had built, because the team was able to do exactly what we needed them to. They rallied and they got stronger and stronger. And it was a little different for a while. But until I was able to get back in front of my laptop on my kitchen table, at least that was my first, re-entrance into the business. It was them doing it on their own. And for me, I was nervous as heck. I was like, what's going to happen to our reputation? How is this business going to look? And how are people going to perceive the business now that they think that Brian's not involved anymore?
Sure. Yeah.
So to that point, I think as we look at scaling, what are the steps that we need to take to ensure consistency, to ensure that the lines of communication are there, and to ensure that we're hiring the most trustworthy team members that we can, who not only have talent, but understand what it takes to deliver consistent and quality food all the time and service all the time. So much of it lies on the team, I guess is what I'm getting at. Yeah. Yes, the training is a huge part of it, but you really have to find the right people to deliver what it is that you envision for your business, for you and your salons, right? I mean, you have team members that each have their own personality. They each have their own style in cutting.
100%.
They each have so many differences from one another, yet they're all housed underneath Roberts of Philadelphia. And there's something special to be said about being able to build a connection with each of your individual stylists, you as an owner, but also each of the clients. Right. And for us in the food business, each of my chefs have their own skills. They've got their own techniques. Yeah. They have their own experience that they gained from working under other chefs. And their approach to a particular dish might be totally different than the next guy's approach and my approach. Yeah. So what I've always done over the years is I try to offer as much creative drive, and I give them creative freedom, right? As you mentioned earlier, to be able to cook from the heart. And as long as it still fits the guidelines of what Crave represents, it's okay if it tastes a little bit different. I just want to make sure that it's enjoyable and that it still makes the chef passionate about doing it. I know over the years for me, recipes were a guideline and a basis for me, but I didn't love following them to a T all the time, because I knew that there was more that can be done with what I was reading on paper. Or I might try the recipe and it didn't taste right, so I tried again and it still didn't taste right. And I'm like, is it me or is it the recipe? So I'd make, tweaks to make sure that it tasted great. And I think it is no different for every chef and those that like to be creative. And, and having, like I said before, just minds that come from all over, it just makes the experience so much better. So we're going to look for that when we go to scale. We want to have people that are just as passionate as we are, that are just as trustworthy as we are if we do open another kitchen. And sure, I'm going to have to spend several months over there, probably rent something over there and stay there for a while just to make sure it's being run and marketed, and
Sure.
we're connecting with the business, people over there to build a name for ourselves. But the idea would be that I'd be able to take some steps back and have the appropriate leaders within each of the companies.
Yeah.
And so far right now, between Kinsale, Gather, and Crave, and the staffing company, we do have the right leaders in place so that I could be here doing something like this and not have to worry so much that tonight's parties are not going to be okay.
Yeah.
So it's it's truly a pleasure and an honor to have such a great team.
Yeah, well, you've empowered some great people, and you brought out the best in them, and that's
one
of your gifts. Yeah, I love what you said to cook from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool. I love hearing that, because it's like they get to be who they are, cooking from their heart. They've got guidelines, but they got this latitude that they can cook from their heart. That's really cool.
It's so needed. I learned early on what it made me feel like to be able to do that, because the people that I worked for had the same mentality. But I also remember working for a couple of people who were very much, this is our menu, this is what it needs to look like, and we can't vary from that at all.
Yeah.
And what ultimately started to happen was, they'd ask for certain ideas for new menu items, and we would spend a lot of time developing them, and then they wouldn't go with any of it. They would just go what they want. And after some time, it started to stifle our creativity. And, once you can only go so far where you spend a lot of time and energy trying to produce and create something to get shot down time after time after time, instead of, let's work with this, right? This is a great foundation. Let's see how we can improve upon this and find a respectful way to help people realize that they do have true talent and that there's still some that we can do together, right? What can we do together to make this better? So I try to instill that mindset to everybody with everything we do. It doesn't matter if it's cooking or not. It's funny because we relate being a chef sometimes to being an author or a writer. And what I mean by that is we get writer's block just as much as the next, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to writing a menu, there are days and nights where like it just flows. But I would say now more than ever, it's like sometimes that writer's block kicks in, and you have to get yourself either into a mental space or just start a conversation with someone that sparks that creativity again.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's fun, and cooking from the heart makes it a lot more personalized. Yeah. Truly personalized.
Yeah. My wife sometimes will say to me, because I do like to cook. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm just sometimes getting in the kitchen and just creating something or messing around in the kitchen is therapeutic for me.
Sure.
And she's like, you're just making a mess in there. We could be doing something else. What are you doing in there? We could be cleaning the back deck. But I love it. It's therapeutic for me. I love the
100%.
Just what it is in there, what's going on in there. So I wanted to ask you about this thing that I've been thinking about, because I remember you talked about pop-ups, and back in the day in the early 80s, my parents, when they had the salon, there would be the fundraisers in the community, and instead of just giving away a haircut or a haircut package, my father was a great cook, and he loved to cook for people. The Italian family, he loved to cook, but he wasn't the traditional Italian cook. He had some flares of the Italian, but he would do a lot of seafood with it, more marinara. It's just not my grandmother's gravy type Italian. Right. And he loved to cook. And what he would do was they would auction off a dinner at Robert's house for 15 people or whatever it was. And he would donate the dinner. And it was like a pop-up dinner at Dad's house on Tradewinds Avenue in Vanderbilt. But he loved to do it. But the pop-up experience for people is kind of, I don't know if it's the same thing, but I'm just equating it to that. Here's the menu. Here's what we're creating for you. This is our menu. And this is what he gets to create for people. And he loved to see their reactions to what he created, because he was creative, like he was with hair in the kitchen and what he cooked there too.
As long as there's no hair in the kitchen, right? No hair in the food. That's a big no-no.
He loved the hair. He wouldn't cut hair at home. So hair at the salon, food at home. But that was something that people paid a lot of money for. I remember them like they're paying all that money. They're donate. Well, it was a donation,
Sure.
but to go have dinner at our house. But the pop-up experience, like, tell me about that. What is happening in that world right now? Because you've been
You just
doing it
touched
lately.
on two important things. So it's the donation part, right? And how you're helping an organization raise funds for their cause,
Yeah.
but also, what does this pop-up mean for the guests, and how does that interaction create, a memory for them? So on the pop-up side for us, it's kind of evolved over time, but aside from it just being often a collaborative thing. In the beginning, we weren't inviting other chefs in. We were just our own chefs. We were doing our own thing. And we would kind of create the theme, create whatever it is. If we're going to focus on an ingredient, we're going to focus on a region, whatever it might be, or a particular wine or alcohol. But we would try to build an experience that we knew would relate to, or not necessarily relate to the guests, but draw people's attention. So if it was, let's just call it molecular gastronomy, right? That's a term that you heard many years ago, but it really involved a lot of like innovative cooking technique and preparations and presentations. So when we first started Crave, I wanted it to be very memorable, and I wanted to build an experience that they couldn't stop talking about. And so molecular gastronomy was kind of a fun thing for us in the beginning. And, we tried our best to learn as many techniques as we could to incorporate little nuances of it in the food that we did, not something that was so overwhelming and too techy or, too science-like that people were just kind of turned off by, but something that was more of an enhancement or a wow factor. And so that's kind of what started the drive behind the pop-up dinners. And we started them smaller. It was 10, 20 people. And then the popularity just grew and grew and grew. And so now kind of turn the corner to the donation part. Early on, the goal of any business owner is to, one, how do I make money in this, right? How do I make this lucrative? Mm-hmm. Two, how do I get the word out there that I am a business now, that I'm someone that's here that is, looking for work? And three, what do I do to market myself to them and, and make a difference in some way, in any way that I can in the community that's around me? So early on, we started with donating our first, I think it was a 4-person dinner, because I knew it was all coming out of my pocket at the time. I was so young. It was like, how am I going to make this work? So it was a 4-person dinner. I think we got like, $600 for it for the charity. And I was like, okay, that's great. Like $125 a person. Like that's, then we did an 8-person and we got like $1,200. And, but slowly what has happened so much in our business, at least, is word of mouth has just spread like wildfire. We did not spend $1 on marketing until I think I hired on our social media company maybe 5-6 years ago. This is our 13th year in business. And early on, we did not pay for any marketing because, especially I think because of the reputation I built in the restaurants. When the community found that I was starting my own catering business, the media followed. They wanted, that's the next newest thing. Like, what's Chef Brian going to do, and how's this business going to work here in town? So it helped a lot with boosting our visibility. But these donations to the charities really helped us get in front of 300-400 people at a gala, or whatever type of an event it was. We were donating, our logo would pop up on screen, and so at first it was like, okay, there's a great way to get in front of people. But then quickly they became popular, and the dinners started going for $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 for the same 8-person dinner. And we're like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. We were fortunate in 2014, I was on a show on CNBC called Restaurant Startup, and it was a super cool experience. Really put a lot of eyes on us, all here locally, but also Miami and other locations. I mean, this was a national show. So, but we had calls from investors that were on the other coast of Florida that were like, hey, if you're ready, we'll do a restaurant with you. We'd love to sit and talk. I'm glad that we didn't. We never took on any investors. We stayed just Nicole and I as ownership, 100% ownership. But after that experience, it was like business just took off. And these donated dinners now, we were having, bidding wars that were happening where people were bidding up to $5,000, $10,000, going back and forth. And the auctioneer would say, well, Brian, would you do another dinner? So now we're splitting it. We're making $20,000. And it grew from there and went. I think the biggest dinner split that we did was $115,000 that we raised in like 5 minutes.
Wow. That's
so
awesome.
Robert, I have to tell you, when you're early on starting a business and your focus is growing the business, it's one thing. But when you can see the impact that you can make on not just the charity or the nonprofit, but the mission that they do and the people that they help and the children that they help and whatever it might be, it became so much more meaningful to us. Whereas, and I've said this before, and I always say I'm probably going to regret it, but I never do. I became the yes man, right? Nicole and I became the yes people. If you asked us, we're in, because we know that we can help in some way, shape, or form to better the community, to better their purpose. So anytime these types of opportunities present themselves, we try to align ourselves with it. But now it's not about the business anymore. It's really just about helping people.
Yeah.
And because of what I've been through and what Nicole and Remy have been through, the traumas that we've experienced, we know, like you said earlier, what community means now. And so giving back, we know it's going to, in some way, shape, or form, affect us positively down the road too.
Yeah.
And God's, in charge of all that. But
Yeah, right.
But we're grateful to be able to do something like that and to have a team that represents us well and respects that part of our business too, because it's I think a big thing in this world is being able to help others.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, and you've always done it. It's not just something new for you. It's been in your DNA as a culture from the beginning. You've been a giver and contributing and giving back, and that's why as a community, we're blessed to have you. There's a lot of things. Your name, like Norman Love is to chocolate, is to Crave, is to just food, like just food, period. Crave, your name is synonymous. It's like the name when it comes to, great, like extraordinary food. It's just, it's synonymous. It's like should be in the dictionary that way, literally. No joke, really. There's such a, the brand has such a reputation that, it's easy for me to see why people are going to outbid each other for that experience.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for saying that. It's a lot of hard work. We certainly don't always feel like we're the best of the best. We try our hardest every day. But I think when you sit on that pedestal and say we're the best, you're not, you're dead at that point. You're like, why wake up every morning if you're going to go day in and day out and think you're better than someone else? So we just try to put our best foot forward and create something that, at least for ourselves, we think is improved upon from yesterday, and then just continue to share it with the world. And but thank you for sharing that. That means a lot to us.
Yeah, of course.
Makes all the hard work worthwhile.
No,
for
it's Naples is blessed. This area is blessed to have these pillars, and which is why I like that we get to chronicle who you are and get to document this moment in time, because I think you have the best is yet to come for you. A lot of great has already been there, but there's more coming, and we're excited about that as a community.
After the accident too, not knowing if I'd be able to be back in the kitchen, I'm certainly not back at the same capacity as I once was. But thinking about that term, the best is yet to come, I've had that in my mind a lot, because now I think to myself, well, what does life look like for me moving forward? Do I want to be more on the entrepreneurial side, which I really started to take a loving of before the accident, or is there a part of this world that I still want to learn more about? And I love trading in the stock market. Is there a place for me in the markets? Something else. Not to say that I would ever change Crave in any way. I think Crave is going to remain. But for me personally, what does it look like? And and so what I learned. Through my lawyer, through all of this with, my medical expenses and all that, she had experienced some trauma of her own through time. And after a while, she had found an opportunity to speak in front of a group about the traumas. And she quickly realized how much that was helping others. And people started to realize how good she was at it. And so she now does this, several times a year, and has begun to build a big name for herself with it. And so she said, after she had learned a lot about me early on, even before I was even really able to talk much about myself, it was more about what she had researched and learned from friends and family. But she said, I remember a couple months in, she said, I've learned a lot about you over these past few months. And she says, I learned kind of the character of type of person you are. But I've also learned how much of an impact you have when you speak to people and the community and things. She says, I think that you're going to find a way to take this experience that you just had and help people with it. She said, whether it's the brain injury or the bladder injury or whatever it might be, find a way to connect with those that maybe experienced a similar trauma or are experiencing a similar byproduct of their own trauma that is going to affect them in a similar way. And you're going to find a way to give them hope. And it hit me so hard when she said that, because it really ties into a lot of what I've always loved to do, but now it just has more purpose and more meaning because it's going to directly help someone in a different way. It doesn't have to be through food now. It can be just through my own personal experience and ability to potentially motivationally speak to them about, what it might be, or at least show them that I can be a support for them in some way, shape, or form. Okay. So there's an event coming up, actually. I mentioned to you earlier. It's called From Trauma to Triumph, and it's supporting David Lawrence Center. It's going to be held at Gray Oaks on October 14th. It's a luncheon. It's 11:15. It begins. David Lawrence Center, I don't know if you know much about them, but
absolutely. Yeah.
So mental health, brain health, the work that they're doing there is phenomenal. Matter of fact, the pop-up we did last night, a portion of the proceeds of all the ticket sales is going to David Lawrence Center.
Awesome.
When I had this brain injury and I started to learn the side effects about it, a great friend of mine, Amanda Pearson, she's an employee right now. She works for David Lawrence, but she used to work for the Chamber, and she's got her own podcast, actually. Okay. And she connects people in the community, and she just loves to share everything about businesses, similar to kind of what you do here as well. And so she... and I and our spouses and Remy, we were at brunch after church one day, and she started to tell me a little bit more about what they're doing at David Lawrence Center. She talked about this huge renovation, this huge project. It's a 4-year project that they just started like last month, knocking buildings down, building this campus, and the focus, at least in one area of what they do, is going to be brain health, brain research, and support. And I instantly... she said, we're going to be looking to really make this big community outreach, and we want to, speak to just not here locally, but nationally, and about the brain health and what it means to people today. And instantly, as she was talking, I said, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for, something to align myself with.
Yeah.
And so quickly I said, I'm in. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I'm in. And she's like, I still don't know what you're talking about. And then so I elaborate a little bit about what we just spoke about. And it's been a couple of months now, and we are ready to hit the ground running. So this opportunity with David Lawrence Center is just a way for... she's going to be on stage interviewing Nicole and I, and we're going to get to talk about what we've experienced over these last couple of years and how we plan to, what is this next to come, right? The best is yet to come. What does this next part of our lives look like, and how do we want to grow from here? And I know a lot of it's still unknown, but I just feel like some of the pieces are starting to come together. Yeah. And it's great because we're starting to see a little bit of a path.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. I know David Lawrence has been there a long time, and they've been a great resource for thousands of people, and our members of my family included. So we'll rally behind you with that, whatever we can do as well. So that's October
14th.
Is this next event, October 14th?
Yeah.
And it's at Gray Oaks.
At Gray Oaks.
All right. We'll make sure to put a lot of information up about it in the podcast, and we'll get a lot of the clips for it too. So we'll promote it just as well.
Thank you
for sure.
Very much.
I think that it's one more layer of how do you turn. It's what a serial optimist would do.
I love that term.
It is you, to take a tragedy and turn it into how do I make a difference in the world? How do I use this to contribute to others, because you've always been about that anyway. So it really, it's inspiring in itself, just your whole story,
Thank you.
And the pain and suffering that you continue to go through. And I know it is hard to look at you and say, but you look extraordinary, man. You look so good. And I'm sorry you're struggling with what you're struggling with, because I can only imagine. And I'm grateful for the fact that medicine is where it's at, and that you're able to be on the road to recovery, which is long. My wife's had a couple of brain surgeries, and she's had a stroke before, and brain is something that, talking to some of the neurosurgeons, they talk about there's so much they don't know about it, but it's such an incredible part of the human body.
It
And
really
the way
is.
she had for a year, she was unable to recall certain memories or certain, things that she knew. And it wasn't there, but the brain found new neural pathways to get to that data that's there somewhere in there. It's fascinating.
It's
It just
bizarre.
takes time, but
Yeah.
she was able to get those pieces back. But it was frustrating for her in that process to kind of reconnect with what she knew, but she just couldn't find it.
I can relate wholeheartedly. Earlier on, especially, there was so much of my life that I forgot about. Like I couldn't connect with those thoughts anymore. And even today, just retaining a lot of that information. I've always felt like I was pretty sharp and, and could multitask very well. And I could, my memory was great. And now, Nicole and I'll have conversations and she doesn't know if I'm just being a guy and just say, yeah, I understand. I hear you. And then she tries to, get me to recall what she spoke about and I've already forgotten it. And she's like, Brian, are you listening? But when we realized that it's actually something more, it was something that, was actually happening to me with this whole memory loss and stuff. And, it's truly unfortunate the way that things happened. And I really, again, I try to be that serial optimist and think, how can I take my experience and do good by it? And, but we're looking at a future that, from the brain scan that I took from the day the accident happened to a year later, they had to do a special brain scan to just see the progress, see, where my brain is at. Because of the brain bleed, they found that my brain was shrinking at a 40 times rate faster than it should in somebody my age. And what they can determine by that is that at age 65, I have a 50% chance of having dementia, and at age 75, 100% chance of having Alzheimer's.
Wow.
I don't want to believe that. You said medicine obviously is improving a lot. I don't want to, live my life counting the days by any means.
Right.
When I see little bits and pieces of this memory stuff happening now, obviously it's not a very settling feeling. But when I can align with an organization like David Lawrence Center that is going to devote so much of what they do to brain health and brain research, if I can extend my life and someone else's life to be on this earth for just a few more days, I think every bit of what I do is important when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So, I like I said, I've learned a lot through this experience and I value things way different than I ever have. And now it's just a matter of, what do I want to do every day to fill my heart, to fill my family's heart and those that are close to me and help in any way I can. And, primarily it's still through food. But so many other ways I'm finding can do the same for me. So at some point, if I physically or mentally just can't do it still, I'm going to have other paths to be able to take.
Yeah. What a beautiful thing. To be able for somebody to get the message that you're delivering so that maybe they could have that experience in life without having a tragedy, but they could actually get the message that, fill my heart today and live fully now without having to experience what you experienced, but get that message from you. That's a special thing in itself.
Thank you. And that is the message that I truly want. You nailed it right there. I think I don't want people to have to go through anything close to what I have had to go through either, or my family. And this affects Nicole in different ways than it affects me, right? Because she didn't physically experience it, but she experienced a lot more and in a lot of different ways than I did, and things that trigger her and things like that. So, I think there's a lot that I don't want people to have to experience, but still take that same approach to life, like you said, because life is short. They always say that, but you always hear, you might not be here tomorrow, but you never really take it seriously until it happens to you.
Yeah.
And even though it happened to me, I still I'm amazed by how true that statement is. And, and just grab your family and your loved ones close, because you never know. You never know. It's never sometimes it can be too late, right?
Yeah.
It can be too late to give your child a hug in the morning, to, read a bedtime story. And I'm guilty of it myself, because I'm kind of re-entering myself into a lot of different things now. And it's hard to balance, and it's hard to stay focused on what truly is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So don't waste time.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. And I appreciate it too.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
So when you're in your creative flow in the kitchen, what music is playing?
So, early on when I was very focused on my technique and ensuring that everything was being done properly, I didn't want any music in the kitchen because to me, it was all more about focus. It's about focus. And I recognized that when music started playing and people started, dancing around and singing, time was being wasted, and focus was just being drawn to things that were not what was important to make the dish perfect, right? And wasn't important to make the dining experience for the guest. So I quickly omitted music from the kitchen. And I said, guys, this is how it needs to be for a little while until we can prove that we are able and capable of doing what our end goal is with music. We're going to do it first without. So they respected it, and I think it grew that way for a little while. But but then as I slowly started to let music in, it was kind of like whatever the team wanted at first, and it depended on who was prepping in the kitchen on that day. Some days it could be like heavy metal rock music. Some days it was hip hop and rap. Some days it was just like easy listening music. For myself personally, there's some hip hop and stuff that I like. So if I had a busy day and a lot of prep to do, I get something a little bit more fast paced. But personally, I like things like John Legend and Michael Bublé and some of the little more like vocal and like pentatonics, things that have vocal and acoustic and things like that. I really enjoy. I started early on a little bit as, I don't want to call myself a musician, but playing the clarinet at a young age and learning a little bit of guitar and piano. And so I've always loved music, but vocals are always something that's very special to me. If someone hits a note that is so perfect and so on key, goosebumps throughout my body, right? I mean, it's just such a special and amazing feeling that someone created through their voice. It's just awesome. So I like to sing and I love all that. And so that's why I think that type of music has always been something that I enjoy. So if it's hip hop or anything like that, it's a little more upbeat. Often it's the type of hip hop that has really good vocals too. So like Usher as an example, or Neo, like those are two guys that have incredible voices, but also can do it to a great beat and and throw a few verses down at the same time. So I like that type of stuff.
What's something that would go with the vibe of a restaurant you envisioned? Like what music would fit?
So for like front of the house,
like
what would be out front? I enjoyed jazz type music too, but I wouldn't do just like old school jazz. It'd probably be something that is a little more upbeat. I also, especially when I was at Crew, we had what we called the Tosca Lounge up front. It was like a tapas style lounge, and then we converted it into a sushi bar a couple years in. And during that experience, at least in the upfront part of the dining, we had a lot more upbeat, kind of like lounge contemporary style music that it made you feel good. And I'm all about finding an environment that can make you feel good. So whenever we do these pop-ups, as an example, we'll have a playlist that evolves throughout the course of the night. So I think in the restaurant, might do the same type of thing where, and it's kind of tough because when you stagger reservations, someone's starting point might be the ending point of somebody else, right? Yeah. So it really is determined by how far into the evening you are. Because I know for me, if I'm going to eat early, I'm expecting it to be a little bit more laid back. But if I'm going to eat a little bit later in the night, normally the restaurant's a little more hustle and bustle, and the music's probably going to pick up. Yeah. So our playlist at these pop-ups typically will start with something more like dinner jazz type music, and it'll evolve into something a little bit more upbeat, where at dessert time, hopefully we've got club music going on. So that's the type of experience that I like to do. It just builds the energy along with the meal.
Okay. Now, if your life were a movie, what would the opening soundtrack be?
I feel like my life is a movie sometimes. Oh, man. Oh, the opening soundtrack. Gosh. Should I say the theme to Rocky? No.
Fits. I get Maybe. It. Yeah. Yeah, that's 100%. I totally get that. Yeah.
It's like a battle every day to just, get to the top of that mountain. But yeah, it's something like that. I mean, gosh, I'd have to put some thought into that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the first one, though, I can get that one. Totally. Do you have a hidden talent?
Someone asked me this the other day, and I put some thought into it. And so I can do a Rubik's Cube. If you were to mix up a Rubik's Cube, I can actually solve the cube in my best time is 1 minute and 54 seconds.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hidden talent.
Without taking the stickers off and re-putting them around. That's what I did when I was younger. No, I learned the technique, and it's a technique process that you have to do in a certain order. and I learned it. And even though like if I don't pick it up for a couple of months and then I go back to it, I have to kind of remember it, so I can't do it that fast. But if I'm well practiced, minute 54 is my best
Really?
time.
So there's a teachable method to that.
100%.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Go on YouTube. I mean, there's like 150 different videos that you can learn, and there's different steps that you have to master. So it's like step 1 is one layer, step 2 is layer 2, and step 3 is layer 4. And then once you have layer 4, you have to learn how to get them in the right rotation, in the right direction to land on the absolute final, matched area. Like, so the whole cube.
What had you go down that path to figure that out?
Brain health. No joke. No joke. So after the accident, when I was stuck on the couch every day forever because of my, I couldn't walk and all that, I needed to find ways to keep my brain engaged.
Yeah, you have to do that. Yeah.
So I bought a Nintendo Switch, and me at age 43 is playing Nintendo Switch, but it was good because it was hand-eye coordination. It was like, it was nostalgic for me too, because all the old games that I used to play, they had newer versions of.
Yeah.
But so I would do some of that. But then there were games that were brain challenging too, where Nicole would do it with me, like, Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, things like that, where you could do brain solve type stuff. And talking to my neurologist, he said, the best thing for you to do right now is keep engaging the brain. So do things like Sudoku and word search and crossword puzzles and things like that. So Nicole and I would do these like Sudoku challenges where I would print off like 10 boards and we would just time each other and we would see who could do it first, right? Who would finish it first. So it was a lot of fun. So the Rubik's Cube became something that I was like, what, I've always wanted to solve that. And now more than ever, it would be the most challenging.
Yeah.
But let me see if I can learn it. So I just put myself through the process. And once I mastered layer 1, I'm like, oh my God, I could do it. And Nicole pat me on the back all along, even though she was like, you're such a big kid. What are you doing?
A minute and what? What is the record? A minute
54 seconds.
A minute and 154. That's awesome. All right.
I don't know if you've ever seen some of like I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but like the Japanese children that
sure. Yeah.
They do it in like 8 seconds.
Yeah. Just their hands.
You watch them and their hands are shaking all over, and it's like click, 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 click. What I had to learn actually during the research is there's two different, I think more, but there's two different major differences in some of the cubes. One is the basic that you turn and it's normal, and then there's like the quick cube, or I don't remember what they call it, but the actual infrastructure of the cube, I mean, if you look at what the science of the cube is, they're all rotating on like little rotating axis, right? And they have these axes that are like faster. So it's like having really well oiled rollerblades, right? Like the wheels on rollerblades, right? So these things, like you flip it around and it just like smoothly goes around, and you can almost turn it and it'll keep turning, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So that's how I think they go through the motion so fast with their hands.
Shave off seconds with that.
Exactly, right? Instead of click, oh shoot, I'm stuck, and you're trying to get it to go around, right? So that was a big learning curve for me. I had to get one of the professional cubes in order to do it.
I got to try that.
You never do anything half-assed in my life, right? If I'm going to do a Rubik's Cube, it's going to be with a professional cube.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Now you got me wondering about that. I got to try that. If are there any recent, or have there been any in your life, books that have impacted you, or is there something that's recent that you're reading that you like, or podcasts?
So earlier on, and this was pre-accident, there's a book called Life on the Line, which was the story of Grant Achatz. He's a world-renowned chef, but super popular chef in Chicago. And his story is he was actually recognized as best chef in the United States from Bon Appetit magazine, amongst so many other things, Michelin stars and all that. But this particular year, he had developed tongue cancer. And so he went through the whole process of, radiation and everything, on his tongue. And so you can imagine as a chef having the best reputation in the U.S. with just the pressure of having this stellar experience at your restaurant every day and not being able to taste anymore and not being able to sense sensations on your tongue anymore, which is so important to a chef.
Sure.
When the accident first happened to me, I lost sense of taste. I lost sense of smell, because of where the brain injury was in the frontal lobe. And still today, it's not where it used to be, but it's getting better. I could notice changes. So much of his story, when I reread it today, really resonates in me and what he's gone through. And I remember his little excerpts from his team, and they would say, it was amazing because he had such a muscle memory when it came to cooking. I know for myself too, when you feel the granules of salt, you know how much you're picking up. You know how much of that salt you're going to put in this dish based upon the quantity of what you're seasoning. Whether it's seasoning a protein, a fish, a steak or something, or it's cooking risotto or pasta and making sure it's seasoned appropriately. I know how much by feel that I need to pick up and put on there. So his muscle memory from all of that was so profound. It was so perfect that he would season something and he couldn't taste it himself, but he would slide the pan over to a sous chef who would taste it. And the sous chef wrote about it and said, every day, every time, it was spot on.
Wow.
He never missed a beat.
Wow.
Even though he couldn't taste his food on his own. So it was really inspiring to read that and to recognize that there's a long way that my palate and my brain need to go before I'm going to ever be able to, do it that well.
Yeah.
But it's a goal, right? It's a goal to reach. Yeah. So I loved his story. It talked so much about his career and growing up and starting at the small restaurant, washing dishes. Like there was so much about his story that, resonated in me. So it's called Life on the Line. And there's a double meaning there. Life on the line, they call the cook line, right? Where we as chefs, we cook. Of course, that's the line. But his life was also on the line because of his tongue cancer. Wow. So it's pretty cool. Podcast wise, I'm starting to do a lot more like motivational speaking and that type of stuff. I don't know if you know Ray Higdon. He is a motivational speaker, great businessman, entrepreneur, and he changed his life over quite a bit to focus a lot more on spirituality and God and how Jesus and God has changed his life. Yeah. And so now he took this business platform that he's done, and he's wrote books and he's motivationally speaking up on stage in front of thousands, and it's focused a lot more on religion now, or I should say on God and the importance of it. So. Again, in this journey, Nicole and I have done a lot of soul searching as well, and we've found God in a lot of new ways. So with my journey starting tonight with Bible study, I mean, the Bible is really going to be a lot more of my scripture now. What I plan to read a lot more of. Yeah. Being as you said, a serial optimist. I find a lot of optimistic and motivational excerpts that come out of the Bible and, in the scripture. And when I go to church and I read some of the stuff, the passages that they're putting up on screen, it connects with you in so many great ways that why would you not want to live reading that every day? And you don't have to look at, I've never really been a very religious person at all. I actually was raised Jewish.
Oh, is that right?
I was. Yeah. And Judaism is still very important and still even a part of, when you look at history, when it comes to religion and Christianity and all that, Jesus was Jewish, right? So I've never really been very spiritual and very connected to religion, but I think life happens and there are reasons that God was brought to me and why I want to also speak through his word now a lot too. But I think some of the motivational stuff that I'm learning and some of the approaches to life that I, have in front of me, it's a lot easier when you have that type of, reading to be able to motivate you every day to just be the best version of yourself and, and trust in the bigger purpose. Yeah.
How are you able to, I interpret some of the verses in the Bible to put them onto your life? Because sometimes I want to be able to get more out of it. And for me, I find this challenge sometimes of not understanding the way it's written. And I know it means something, but sometimes interpreting it is difficult for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm still learning myself. Yeah. Really. I mean, I'm still learning a lot of this myself. And church has helped me a lot because they break it down in a way that is a little bit more understandable. Yeah. And they might take just a passage and that can be the full hour's worth of the service. Yeah. But they'll break it down to a level that everyone will say, okay, now it resonates in me. I get it. Yeah. I think Bible study is going to do a lot of that for me as well. Yeah. Yeah. But parts of it are, there's, I'll call them characters, right? But characters that, people that are part of history and are part of why things happen the way they did. And when you look at what they did and what they experienced, once you learn about that passage and then you learn about, like the book of John and you learn about those types of things and you start to see it a little bit more often through repetition, it makes more sense to you. And so now they'll bring up parts of the book of John when we're not reading the book of John and you'll go, okay, I remember that. Yeah. I remember that part and I remember why he did what he did or why what he experienced affected him in that way. And all it is really is life experiences. And I think you and I can certainly say I can be affected in a lot of ways by my own life experiences, by other people's life experiences. And you can take what happened to them and apply it to your life and apply it to how you want to live your life, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
I always used to love when I was growing up and I was at the TPC Plana. After my mentor left, another chef came in, and he was this high regard, respected chef in the American Culinary Federation. And he became quickly known for what he coined as the ultimate dog, which was a hot dog that was served on the beverage cart. And it was like his claim to fame. It was a hot dog. And so quickly he became known as like a big-headed chef that really did not have the talent to back it up. But I will say, because I worked for him for a couple of years, that I would not have known what was right until I knew what was wrong. And I learned a lot from him. I learned in some regards what not to do, but I also learned some shortcut tricks that, helped in some ways. I never like to take the shortcuts, but under pressured situations, you kind of need to learn that. So when you can't learn what's right until you know what's wrong. I take a lot from people's experiences, even if it doesn't apply 100% to me. And I think the Bible can actually be that to anyone.
Yeah.
In that, you're never going to be the guy that got onto Noah's Ark, but you can certainly understand what it takes to rally people together and, save the colony just because of a tragedy that might be underway. What are hurricanes like to us here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what we deal with, right?
Right.
We're boarding up and sometimes shipping out for a while until the coast is clear, we can come back. So, I think there's so much about the Bible that I don't know yet, but it's been a great way for me to connect to my own personal emotions, really kind of bring our family together, set a path for Remy, because where we're sending her to school now, there's a little bit of undertones of the Bible and helping them understand
Beautiful.
Who God is and why it's important. And there are so many gods out there, and I think all religion is important, and it's a matter of how it applies to you and what it does for you in your life. And I think that could be special for anyone in any environment.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that with me because this year I lost my father-in-law, who was my hero in life. He literally was, my mentor, but he was like a walking Jesus to me. Literally, he was like a mentor. He was like a apprentice of Jesus, I called him, because he was just, he embodied what it is to serve other humans. And I just admired him. I loved him so dearly for that. I just admired his spirit every day and every moment to live life fully now and to serve others, like drop everything in the moment to serve another human being. It's just who he was for me. And he had a relationship with God and the Bible that I always admired, but I am finding that since he has passed, people are put into my pathway that have opened up another version of it for me. So I appreciate you sharing that with me, because I know there's more for me in the Bible and through God and through what he opened up for me in my life, and his who he meant to me and who he is for me. And so having you openly share that with me is really good for me too.
Oh,
so
it's my pleasure.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that not everyone has a reason to go to the Bible, I should say, initially, right? Often people go to the Bible because of a trauma or because of an addiction or because of something that they're looking for peace, or they're looking for something that can be a guiding light for them to get through a time in their life that they never expected to be in. And often God ends up being the best way, you know? And so, but just like I spoke about earlier, surrounding yourself with great people. I mean, you have to also learn and talk about it with people that are good at learning and talking about it with you, you know, and because otherwise it's just a bunch of words on paper that don't really mean much, you know?
Yeah.
So if I didn't have this platform and I didn't have a great pastor that we would go and speak with, and I didn't have a wife who really enjoyed this as well and was important to her and her family, then it probably would not do what it's doing for me right now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's also for me seeing it in action in you, and it's not just your words, but it's your actions too that kind of help me understand it more. So I appreciate that. It's kind of cool.
Sure. Thank you.
What's your You don't drink coffee, so I can't even ask you that. No, that's your
No, I
coffee.
do. I do. It's just not a daily.
Okay.
Normally, like Nicole, it's funny because Remy has actually taken a liking to the kitchen, and it started with her little play kitchen. You know, we got a little apron for her with a Crave logo. One of
Awesome.
the woman that does embroidery for all of ours, she gave it as a gift to us. And it's the most
cool.
adorable thing. But she loved it, and she loves to be a chef in the kitchen. She just actually asked me the other day. She's like, "Where are you going, Daddy?" I said, "Well, I'm going into work. I've got to do some cooking." She's like, "Well, you're going to cook like a chef?" I was like, "Yeah, that's Daddy's work," because she knows I'm a chef. She always says, I says, "What's Daddy?" She said, "Daddy's a chef." But she said to me, she goes, "Oh, you're going into work and you're going to cook?" I was like, "Yeah, Daddy's a chef. I work." She's like, "You're not a real chef, Daddy. You're just a pretend chef at home." I'm like, no, baby. Like, that's actually my job. That's what I do. So Nicole said to me this morning, I didn't know she was doing this. She said this morning, she says, "You know what Remy said to me yesterday?" I was like, she said, "Did you know that Daddy's really a chef? Like, he's a real chef." This is a 3.5-year-old, right?
I love it.
It's the best. This is the best. So anyway, so she started to take a liking to cooking, so we would always play a little bit in the kitchen. But Nicole is a coffee fiend. She I call her a coffee connoisseur because it's not that she needs to drink coffee, but she appreciates really good coffee.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
if it is not like anytime we go traveling, and I didn't realize it until recently, the reason we were going into all these different coffee shops is because she loves great quality coffee and she wants to find the perfect cup of coffee, but she also has this passion for coffee that I think you might somewhere down the road see a little coffee shop that is inspired by us.
Oh, how cool.
It's kind of a little passion project that I think we might be soon.
Yeah. Oh, how I'm excited for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be cool. But the point I was going to make is that early on, Remy loved that Mommy was making coffee and wanted to know. She's curious. She's so curious. So her little step stool that she can get up on that brings her up to counter level. Nicole would kind of make the coffee with her, and she would say, "Okay, press this button." So she would press the button, and the espresso would come down, and then help me put the grounds over here, help me pull down the lever to pack the grounds. So it was all learning for her, and then they would press the button when the espresso would come down, and she would duck down and she would go, "Go coffee, go, go coffee, go." So Nicole started videoing this, and quickly she became the baby barista, and like the likes and the hits on social media were like wildfire coming through. So it became their thing. And so now Remy likes to make coffee with Mommy, and she's helping her make little creations now, and it's so much fun. So coffee is actually special to our family.
Oh, I love that.
I just, I don't need the caffeine per se every day. And actually, I don't drink soda really at all. And since the brain injury, I am now pretty much decaf because there's a lot that caffeine does to your brain that it quickly speeds up its processing, and it's not really good when you're in a healing stage.
Makes sense.
So so I do more tea, and it's decaf tea. Or if I do coffee, typically it is decaf. Occasionally I'll have caffeinated. But anyway, you had a question about coffee.
Yeah, well, that answered it. I just so I got it. And it's still around the household. It's just not necessarily something you wake up to or need to wake up to in the morning. Yeah.
But I do love the smell of coffee in the morning. Yeah. That's something. So when she's making coffee, I'm like, it perks me up a little bit, which is nice.
Yeah, me too. I'm an espresso. It was my father and I's drink together. Because he, just how he used to, in his later years, he wasn't well and he was at home and he would invite me over. He wouldn't put anything in the text except for a picture of an espresso cup, which meant come have espresso with me on the back deck.
I love it.
And since he passed in 2015, we put espresso machines in each of the salons, and it's sort of a tribute to him every time.
I love that.
So
I love that so much.
Yeah,
that's so great.
Yeah, it's our way together. Salute to each other.
Love it.
So it's why I always ask. But I am a coffee. I like. I'm this year I've done. I'm going sugar free just for the year. Just
good for you.
Just to I don't know, delay the gratification, I guess, anyway. But also just kind of get sugar out of my system anyway.
You're gonna see some amazing changes.
Yeah,
truly amazing changes.
7 months in here. So
wow, that's so great.
I know going back to it will be different.
Yeah.
We have a woman who works for us who's from Cuba, and incredible woman, incredible family, super hard work, and just her whole story is remarkable. She recently, in the last several years, got her sisters out of Cuba to have them come here, and her sister came here for the first time, and we wanted to celebrate her sister's freedom. It was a big deal that she came here. So we had them over for Thanksgiving dinner. And, aside from the turkey, we always had to do other things. I did a tenderloin and, just not the traditional turkey because it's kind of boring, but we did other things. And we had a lot of food. And for them, it was overwhelming. Even they couldn't stomach the meats the way that we could because they just didn't have it there.
Sure.
It wasn't accessible to them. It was beautiful to see the feast. We were celebrating this, and I thought they would be like all over the food, but it wasn't what they were used to. Their bodies weren't used to it. And accustomed to it. So I'm thinking to myself, like, I love Haribo gummy bears. I love them. And I'm thinking on New Year's Eve or January 1st, like, eating them, but I'm sure my body will respond differently than it has before. Like,
honestly, you can overdose on sugar pretty quickly, right? And not realize that, because it'll be a sensation that will be so pleasurable initially, right? Because your palate likes sweetness, right? Or at least probably used to, right?
Yeah.
I'm a sweets person, so I know that very quickly if I start to eat the sweets, I'm going to keep going on the sweets, and then it affects my weight and affects my brain clarity, and it affects so much.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say in moderation, very important. If you do start to bring it back.
Yeah.
But being able to cut it out completely I commend you for that, because personally, if I'm cooking, I know exactly what's going in it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty good at reading a label and recognizing that fructose and sucrose and those types of things, that is sugar, right?
Yeah,
it's not just going to say sugar, right?
Yeah,
There's a lot of different ways that sugar can be identified.
Yeah.
A different form of sugar can be identified. And going to things like artificial sweeteners and even stevia, I think stevia has its place, and there's definitely, flavor-wise, I think it can do a great job. But it seems like, especially with Americans, right? Like, we overcompensate so heavy into the other area.
Yeah.
So, okay, I got sugar out of me, but now I'm just going to do all carbs, or now I'm going to do, I'm going to drink alcohol now or whatever. But there's what's in alcohol? Sugar.
Right?
Yeah. So it's a very difficult thing to do. So I commend you for it, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I'm fascinated by how much sugar is in everything. It is in so many problems. Like, why does it need to be in so many things? Why do they have to put it in everything? It seems like it's such an ingredient that they
sometimes people don't realize that in some regards it helps preserve things, right? Now we go back to cooking with the right ingredients. If you're going to grab things that are shelf stable, that are sitting on the shelves for a year, 2 years, whatever it might be, they have to put some sort of preservation method together to make that stay on the shelves, right?
Yeah.
And often a form of sugar can be used in order to help that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of cooking processes that use sugar in a lot of different ways, right? Like candying sugar, how you make a caramel, and how you can preserve, how you make your gummy bears, right? I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we use sugar. But you're right, it's in things that you would never expect, and sometimes it's small amounts, sometimes it's a lot larger amount. But often it's about tricking the brain into saying this tastes good. I say tricking because some of these foods that are out there have things in them that are not good for you and should not even be in food to start with. And they have the job of saying, okay, here's our base, now go make it taste good. And they'll hire chefs that'll come in and they'll be their corporate chef for this, flavor company to make the flavor of this whatever taste good. It's crazy. Yeah.
Wow, that's a whole world.
It really is.
Yeah,
it really is.
There's a lot of money in it, so
there is.
That's what's behind it.
There is, yeah.
My pleasure has been this year watching what we went out to dinner with my sister and brother-in-law and my wife, and the offering of a dessert menu is always there, and I will. Sometimes my wife will say, "Well, no, I don't want dessert," but I get pleasure out of her seeing her response to eating a great dessert, like watching her face, seeing the sugar high, seeing it happen. So that's what I've replaced with my dessert.
You're living vicariously through her. Yeah, exactly. That was great. That's
great. Watching the enjoyment in others, watching it happen. What's something about you that most people don't know but should?
Oh man. I tell really good dad jokes. No, I'm kidding. Ask my wife, and she will not agree with that statement. Something about me. I already went over the Rubik's Cube. Like I said, I trade in the stock market.
Yeah.
That's been a passion of mine from early on. I would day trade penny stocks when it was first started. And I made a lot of money in such a short period of time. And then I lost a lot more money in an even shorter period of time. So it was a huge learning experience.
Were you doing that around the time that like the guy on CNBC would come on and he would...
Jim Cramer.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Buy, sell. And the second that I bought something and then I would see that it was a sell, I'm like, no, how do I get out of this thing? Yeah, I mean, that was a huge part of how I learned a lot of, what I did. But I got on like chat boards and I started reading a lot about, and it's tough because penny stocks, sometimes they're like shell companies that are just ways that people are filtering money into their businesses that probably in some ways, definitely in some ways, is not legal. This is something I would do. This is just the companies, quote unquote, that I might invest a few dollars in, right?
Yeah.
And you learn about them, and they have this like front facing image that professional website, this is our mission, this is what we do, and you never would really know that this was like a bogus business until they break a law and all of a sudden their company goes bankrupt, right? And I learned a lot about how many of these companies are out there and to be very careful when it comes to the penny market. The penny market is really like any company that's sub dollar range in the 90 cent, 80 cent, all the way down. But then there's like sub pennies, which are like 001 or 0001.
Oh, I didn't realize
it's less
it did
than
that.
a penny per share. Yeah.
Really?
If you look at things like cryptocurrency right now, some of the cryptos you'll see are like 0.000056789, and that's how much one coin would be valued at in that moment.
Oh, okay.
So if you can imagine, especially if you're looking at like, let's say a 10-cent stock, I can buy like 1 million shares for next to nothing, 1 million shares. And you think to yourself, if that someday gets to $1, I now have $1 million. And I spent 50, $10, $100, whatever it was, whatever the increment is for that particular penny stock. So long story short, I got lucky in a few. When you get into these groups and you see the momentum trading happening and you learn how to read charts, there's definitely a science behind it. There's a lot of technique and strategy. But if you can trade in on an upswing and sell before it crashes, which sometimes can happen in an hour, which sometimes can happen in a day, sometimes it could be a couple of months.
Yeah.
Or you might actually hit that one penny stock that turns into the next Apple or Microsoft and actually does something right for themselves. And they just, they started a penny because that's where a lot of them have to start in order to get the funding and the visibility they need. So it was a big learning experience for me. And I caught a lot of them. I remember making like 10 grand in 5 minutes one day. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so easy. This will be what I do for the rest of my life. And then I lost 20 grand at the next moment. And I'm like, okay, never mind. I'm not as good as I thought I was.
That sounds like my poker game.
Yeah, right? I do love poker too. That is something that I really love
and that's
too.
calculated risk. People don't understand that. Yeah, it's different than pulling a lever or a roulette.
A slot machine. Yeah. Agreed.
You get to play your odds. Yeah,
you do. You play your odds, but you're also playing people.
That's the part I love the most. Yeah. You're the person. Yeah.
Because
you're not playing the house.
They tell right. And so you got a little bit more control. You don't have the control over what cards you have, but you watch it on TV sometimes and you see guys that have like 3-4, and the other guy's got ace king, and like a 3, or let's say like a 2, 5, and an ace comes up. Well, he's got a pair of aces, but I've got a potential straight here, so I'm actually sitting in a much better place.
Yeah.
But if I don't pair up again, or I don't get the end of that straight, he's beating me. So I might say, all right, I've got better odds. I'm gonna either go all in or bet a lot heavier and try to get the guy that's got the better position that he's really sitting in terms of who could win if it closes right now, and get him to fold. So you got to read people, you got to learn their style, and I have fun playing poker a lot.
That's absolutely exactly what you pointed to. What I love about the game, it's just you're playing with 8 other humans, and you're playing that other human being. Aside from the cards, you've got another game going on. It's not just ace king. I've got a straight draw, or I've got a flush draw.
Right.
It's just that's exhilarating.
And
like you said, like one hand, you've got the nuts, or you thought were the nuts,
right.
and I just got beat by a full house.
Right. And then you didn't even catch that. That's even a possibility in that moment. So you got to know your hand, and you got to also know what's potential.
100%.
Right? And
Yeah.
sometimes
Like,
you
what
get
could
so
I be getting beat by?
focused. You get so focused on what you're waiting for you.
Yes.
That you're like, let me risk it. And then the guy has like a completely better hand than you ever thought he could have.
Yeah.
We used to get into a bunch of games after work. A bunch of the chefs and I, like, we get together, but we wouldn't just play Texas Hold'em or anything like that. We would add, like, there's so many different names and so many different variation games.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Where like wilds come into play, and, and it's like now you've got 6 cards or 8 cards instead of just the 4 or the 2 that you're playing in regular games. It's it goes all over the place, but it can be a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah, one of my favorite games. I love it was an old. My grandparents, we'd play for pennies at my grandmother's house, and my grandmother they were big time. But one of the games that people don't understand fully that it is a different game than just roulette. I don't know. That's the thing I love about it. But we're actually talking about. I'll have to let you know when we play. But I'm trying to get a little game together from a group of guys from the gym. That we've never played together, but one guy plays Omaha a lot, which is a real game. That's like really getting out the game. It's a fun game, but he goes to the track, and I guess they play. There could be a lot of money on the table at a time. I'm not up for that game. I just play the smaller 2-5 or 1-2. But anyway, we get a game together. I'll have to invite you.
I'd love that. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love it.
Cool.
Good. I have a couple more for you. I'm going to let you do one of these, and then I'm going to let you get back to work. But I appreciate you giving us all this time. These are just rando.
Sure. Oh, goodness. Taking a card here. Am I looking at it?
Yep.
Okay.
You can read it out loud, whatever it says there.
It says, icebreaker. Where's the strongest place you've fallen asleep? The strangest place you've fallen asleep. Man. Gotta think of the strangest. There's a lot of places that I've fallen asleep. A lot of places. When I was working in Manhattan, I was initially, before I moved into the city, I was taking the train from New Jersey in. And this isn't necessarily strange, but on numerous nights after the intense cooking that we do, I'd get onto the train and I would almost instantly fall asleep. And it was about a 45-minute ride. And they're not waking you up. If you miss your stop, you miss your stop. And so I would end up so far down into New Jersey, into a whole nother area, like we weren't the last stop, and then try to figure out at 3:00 in the morning, how am I now getting home? Right? Like, what's the next? So it's Uber, right? Because I don't have a car or anything wherever I landed, or if I'm lucky enough to catch another train going back the other way. So that would happen to me a few times. I then started setting alarms just for, I knew I had like 30 minutes. I would set an alarm to make sure I didn't fall asleep. But man, I mean, I've fallen asleep in movies. I've fallen asleep as a passenger in a vehicle all the time. Mid conversation with my wife sometimes after a busy night. Sorry, honey, it's not your speaking. I promise you, it's not what you're talking about. But gosh, like an in public type thing. I went to a Broadway show once, and I love Broadway, but I think being in this business, you get so tired out, and the moment that you get to kind of relax your brain, it just triggers this like peaceful feeling, and then you just start to doze off.
I get it.
It just happens. That's a tough one though. But I think the train is probably
that fits. That's one that you would say, all right, I'm from New York to Jersey on the train and falling asleep on it.
Too often.
I got one more.
All right, this one's labeled deep. What is something you're weirdly good at? Well, we kind of went over the Rubik's Cube, right? Let's do one more. Let's do one more.
That one's we did do that one because that one's true. That one is the Rubik's Cube is you're weirdly good at it. Yeah.
All right, this one's deeper. Do you have any vices or habits that hold you back in life? Oof. Okay. Hold me back in life, or hold me back in my connection to Nicole and Remy sometimes. I think I'll label it as that, and she'll be the first to say this. So, again, as I kind of get through the accident, I was trying to find things that would, one, numb the pain, help take my brain off of what I was going through and all of that. And so, like I said, Nintendo and Rubik's Cube and word search, those types of things became popular for me. But another nostalgic thing was sports card trading. baseball card, basketball card, football cards. And my brother and I, we had, as kids, we had these great collections, probably weren't worth anything at the time, but we had the best players, and so I started looking on eBay, and I started to see there was a ton of stuff available. And I had done some eBay business stuff a while back, like before really getting into restaurant cooking, where I would buy like older electronics and then I would turn them around and sell them as vintage and, make like a tenfold on whatever I got at a garage sale. So buying and selling was always something that I was kind of passionate about. And now it's more real estate than it is, that type of stuff. But so with the sports cards, I started small. I said, you know what? I like these players. Let me buy a couple of them. And then I saw, oh my gosh, these are going up in value. Let me see if I could sell. So I learned it that way. And then I found these groups on Facebook that do a ton of buying and selling, but they're kind of like games. And I'm not going to go into any of the detail, but essentially you buy a spot, and then once the full line is filled, you go, the runner, they call them, the runners, quote unquote, go to random.org, and there's a randomizer. They put the list into the randomizer and roll the dice, and on a video you can see the list gets randomized, and let's say it landed on 10, it'll go and randomize 10 rounds. On the final round, if your name is on the top of that list, you win the card. If you're on the bottom 2 spots, you pay half of the value of the card. So that's in its simplest form. So if it's a $100 card, you're risking now that with one spot that you're going to owe $50 and get nothing, or you might actually win the card.
Okay.
So I started to get really into this, and I started building my collection with my brother. We both started doing a lot of this. Now we're so into it now. Like we have a lot of great favorite, players. And so we're trying to build our collections and a lot of those. And we go to some of the card shows. And so I think that's kind of a little passion, thing for us. However, it takes a lot of my time when I'm not focusing on cooking and the businesses away from Nicole and Remy. And so I think that's kind of a habit, now that, I gravitate towards that sometimes more than I probably should. And Nicole is honest with me about it. So it's a place that I'm working towards putting the cards down, Brian. Put the cards down. No, it's really not as bad as I made it sound, but there are times where it certainly gets in the way. So
that's a big deal. I was watching the World Series of Poker this year, which was on, a lot of it was on, they were streaming it online. And one of the poker players there has a business of that, a card trading business.
Sure, yeah.
And he would bring these big boxes to the poker table and just would open them in front of people just to see what he got, because it was such a
I think I know who this guy is that you're talking about. I think I've seen this. Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Because you get what they call like raw cards, right? That come right out of the pack. Yeah. And then you can submit them to some of the grading companies like PSA or Beckett or CGS, CSG, or SGC, excuse me. And with that, you are in hopes that you're going to get the best grade possible, which is a 10. When you get a 10, it means the centering of the card is right, the surface is clean, the edges are good, the corners are good. Everything about the card, front and back, needs to represent the perfect card in order to get a 10. So your goal when you open up a pack is, do I have a card that's worthy of a 10? And then can I handle it with so much care, get it packaged the way it needs to get packaged and shipped off to the grading company without screwing it up?
Oh, yeah.
And then they grade it. So, so many times you'll get a 9 back or even a 9.5 sometimes. You're like, oh, what did I miss? What wasn't just perfect?
Yeah.
Or you hope that the grader is, fell asleep on the job, right? We're talking about falling asleep, and gives you a better grade than you should get. But that all translates into better value for the card, because the card itself has a value. But then once you have a grade that's the highest it can be, to a collector, it means, okay, I can get that version of that card, but it's pristine. So I know I want to have that card because it's more valuable to an investor who I might sell to down the road. Some of these guys and some of these cards, they're upwards of multi-million dollars for one card that somebody pulled out of a pack. Wow. And you see some of the quality of the vintage stuff, Mickey Mantle's, Babe Ruth's, Willie Mays, all the big names, Lou Gehrig, and often they are in such poor condition, but even a 1 grade, like the number 1 grade of a Mickey Mantle, can still have several $100s, even up to several $1,000s in value, because it's such a rare card. And why are they in such bad condition? Well, because all the guys back then that had cards, they were getting it for the gum. that came in the pack.
Yeah.
And then what would they do? They'd stick them inside the spokes of their wheels of their bikes, and they go
the clothespin,
while they're riding, right? Yeah. So you look at these cars, they got all these creases on them from going in the spokes of their bikes. And you think that, like, I'm sure some of them who might either have some of them still or whatever think, if I only was not an idiot back then,
right.
I would be a multimillionaire
I'd be
right
retired,
now, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's fun, and but there's so much to it, and there's a local shop here actually.
Is there?
Yeah, East West. It's over in Vanderbilt Shops, and the guys over there are great too, and they got a lot of fun stuff that they bring in there. So occasionally we'll go over there and check it out.
Do they sell the boxes that you can?
Yep.
Open up
Yeah,
and not know what you're going to get.
You can get individual packs, or you can just buy the whole box, or you can even buy a case from them, which has several boxes in it. Yeah.
And they don't know what's in the case.
No.
They're selling it. It's sealed. Yeah.
So you got to be careful, though. I will mention this because even on eBay and other places, eBay had to go through this whole new authenticity process, which is an inspection that they go through to ensure that what their sellers are selling is truly what they say it is. So in the card world, that's super important because if some of these cards, and they'll randomly select cards sometimes to get authenticated, but if I say I have a PSA 10 Patrick Mahomes, right, who's really my favorite football player and I have the best collection of now, if I buy a 10 and it gets shipped to me and it's a fake slab is what it's called when it's put into this kind of plastic coating that has the grading on the top. If it's put into a fake slab, because there's a lot of guys out there that can pirate pretty much anything, right? And it is, it looks to an untrained eye to be a real true card. I might go try to resell that, and somebody might know better, and he might say, "You got a fake here. This isn't real," and I can get in trouble for that, right?
Right.
So eBay had to really step up their game and authenticate a lot of these to ensure that what their sellers were selling were actually truly the right thing. But when it comes to boxes, there's this process out there. I don't know how they're doing it, but they can open the case or open the box. They'll have several of them. So they'll open until they hit a really good card and then hold the rest of the packs from that case aside and do that with several cases. So that's how they now get as many cases or many hits as they need, as many of the best cards. And then they'll put all the packs back together to fill one full case and then re-shrink wrap it with a recreated shrink wrap. And now you think you have a fully, real full case or box that was tampered with.
Yeah, wow.
And now the hits are not really in that case because they've already taken them out. So it's unfortunate that that type of thing happens, but I've learned it over time. And but when you go to a reputable place like that, you know that they have really good, worthy stuff. So you don't have to worry about that type of thing happening here locally.
I got to pay attention to that more now.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of those I'm sure there are so many people that wish they didn't leave it in their parents' attic and the house got sold.
I'll tell you what, and anyone that's listening to this, if you have a collection that you've been saving since you were a child and you need some help with making some money on it, or you just want to give it away for a good cause. We talked a lot today about, good cause. I need to have some money for my daughter's college tuition. So I'm more than happy to help you go through it, or at least tell you what you have that might be of value. And I'll probably buy some things off of you too.
I'm sure there's so many of those out there.
It sounds so silly talking about this sometimes. It really does. It's like I'm an admin. There's moderators. Like we've got these big card communities, right? And I'm a chef, and I'm talking about baseball cards. Anyway, I obtained one from someone that I lined for them, and the line value for a Charizard Holo was $6,000 for this one card. Wow. So it took me 2 days to get it fully lined, but I can make money off of it, and they can make more money than they would just being able to sell it themselves by going through this type of a process. So it's been a great way to be able to learn a lot about the cards and their values and see what kind of interest there is out there for people to buy it. So let's talk.
Actually hit you up because
got my first customer.
Bring it down with them.
Yeah, let's look at it. Yeah, for sure. That would be cool.
Yeah, he's gonna know. That's cool.
Oh man.
All right, final question. What do you love about your life?
Life in general, having life. I certainly love that. I have the best wife and child I could ever ask for. They are my heart and soul. Nicole is the perfect match for me. Every relationship goes through its struggles. We all do. And don't see eye to eye all the time or have a different approach to something. But somehow, some way, we seem to get through it on the other side, and to get through what we've just been through in these last 4 years, and still love one another, and still want to be the best providing parents for Remy. I know I have the right person by my side, and so I love that for sure. And I've got a wonderful family on both sides of our family that support us as well, and I love the ability to be creative and just speak to people in different ways that can help them, and whether it's through food or it's through experience or or through God, right? I think it's just there's a lot of things to love on this planet, and I just feel blessed to be able to have a second chance to do that and find value in everything that I do. Whether in the moment it doesn't seem like the right thing to do or not, or it seems like the right thing to do or not. So yeah, that's a big question to answer, but there's a lot to love. But I think primarily it's family, God, and just having a second chance to live it.
Yeah,
So.
very well said. Thanks.
Thank
you
you.
for that. You're really the reason why this exists, this spotlight on good people. No doubt, Brian. I appreciate you. Your story reminds us that true strength isn't measured by what we can lift, but by how many times we can lift others up. You've taken a moment that could have defined you as a victim and instead chose to let it refine you as a servant leader. From feeding healthcare workers during a pandemic to raising funds for mental health, from creating unforgettable culinary experiences to building a business that employs and empowers others, you've shown us that the most beautiful recipes aren't just about food, they're about hope, healing, and humanity. Your resilience has become a gift to our entire community, and your humility in the face of such success shows us what true greatness looks like. You absolutely deserve this spotlight as one of our good people, and I have no doubt that your greatest chapters are still to be written. So thank you for inspiring us all to turn our trials into triumphs and our recovery into service to others.
Thank you so much for that. That touches me a lot, and it brought a tear to my eye, literally. I do feel very blessed and honored to have been able to be on this with you as well, and share our story, and just hopefully help someone in some way.
Yeah,
that's listening. So
you certainly are, and I appreciate you, and I look forward to watching Remy through the years, seeing her in her little coffee shop.
Me too. Me too. I'll have to mention the name now. So we're considering Remy's Roast.
I love it.
Roast.
I love it. I love it. That's my new favorite.
Nicole, don't kill me for saying that. Sorry, that was premature.
Oh, we got some tea. We got some scoop. Thanks a million, brother.
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Really.
Absolutely.